Thank you very much. Good evening, ladies and gentlemen. Welcome to the August 14th, 2018 meeting of the Milton Conservation Commission. The commission is appointed by the Board of Selectmen to implement the rules and regulations of the Wetlands Protection Act and the Milton Town Bylaw. As a matter of formality, we actually have two issues. One is there's a recording here of the proceedings, and we invite everybody to speak, comment, question, whatever you'd like, but we ask you to identify yourselves so that it's on the record. The second matter of formality is that we introduce ourselves. My name is John Kiernan.
Hans Van Lingen.
Ingrid Beatty.
Steve Ibis, Conservation Agent.
And for the agenda purposes, we have three things that I'd like to draw your attention to first, because they're going to be continued. And if there's anybody here that is waiting for that, I just want you to know up front that it's going to be continued. The first one is number 3 on the agenda. That is the informational meeting on Wendell Park. That's an Eversource application that we don't have yet, and it has to do with the tree removal for maintenance purposes and to protect the utility lines. So I had actually put out some word to the folks that live on Wendell Park about tonight's meeting. That's going to be continued because we have no information yet from Eversource. They've been very good. They actually came and we did a site walk a couple of weeks ago. But at that time we agreed that they'd submit a formal request, and we haven't yet received that. So number 3 will be continued. Number 4 is a request for certificate of compliance at 1424, 1426, and 1452 Canton Avenue. You may know that as the Eustace Estate. They need to do a little bit more work on planning of the rain garden, so we've agreed to continue that at their request. If there's anybody here for the Eustace Estate. And number 12 is is it 12, Steve?
Yes, it is 12.
That's a request for certificate of compliance, 333 Hillside Street. That's going to be continued until September 11th. And we have one other item, which is number 8, which is 593 Blue Hill Avenue. And we've had an informal discussion. That's going to be continued for some additional, basically a filing of an abbreviated notice of intent. This is the area between Blue Hill Avenue and Brush Hill Road. And if anybody's here for that, that's going to be continued with the agreement of the applicant, who is here right now. But if anybody is here for that, we're going to continue that until September 11th. All right, so it doesn't look like anybody's here and about to leave, so we'll go back to number 1, which is notice of intent, 740 Randolph Avenue.
Good evening. I'm William Clark, Director of Planning and Community Development for the town of Milton. We're here tonight for the siting of the town's new animal shelter. With me is our civil engineer, Jeff Kane, and on my other side is our project architect, Warren Friedenfeld. We have a project that we're building, which one, we have it on the board. We have the site on the board. We have the board behind John, which has the building layout, has the utility layout on it, and it shows the access road that we're fronting on. This is on a parcel of land that's adjacent to the old landfill. Now it's adjacent to Quarry Hills Golf Course. We are not, the supposed wetlands here are non-jurisdictional wetlands per the state. We mark them out as wetlands. We have the 25-foot identified. We have the 100-foot buffer identified. That's our project.
Yeah. Jeff Kane, LAL Engineering Group, project engineer for the animal shelter. I know you folks are probably pretty well familiar with the site, probably more so than I am. But I know in 2015 and 16, Lenore White of Wetland Strategies, went out to the site to locate the wetlands that could potentially be there just for the use of siting this animal shelter. Lenore put together a series of memos between 2015 and 16 outlining what she found there. And these were also reflected in a plan by DeSalle Engineering that did show some of the areas that she had located. In those memos, she had mentioned that the site was one time a quarry, and there exists a lot of small quarry holes where rocks have been mined out that are going to trap some surface water when it does hit the site. But she knew with no bordering vegetated wetlands and no floodplain issues there, the only resource area that potentially was on the site were isolated lands subject to flooding. And being said that the Milton bylaws mimic the state bylaws in that definition, she ruled out several areas that by looking at, she knew would not meet the volume definition of an isolated land subject to flooding, that being a quarter acre foot of storage volume. So some of those she ruled out right away. There was 4 areas on the site that she described that are shown now behind you on the existing conditions plans we have at the site. And what she mentioned in her memos that these areas did have wetland vegetation, and there was the potential that they had the volume to be an isolated land subject to flooding, but she could not make that determination in the field. So what she did was go ahead and flag them, and we have them shown here on this plan. And if you look, this area here is one on the south side. You can see the yellow area here is the inside of the wetlands that she has flagged. We have the 25-foot showing here from that, and then the 100-foot with this line here. Another site she located was to the northern area. Again, the yellow shows the limit of what we would call the wetland area. One of the other sites she located was right here. It's a detention pond associated with the Quarry Hills. And there was another small site just to the very east of the, off this project site, but just to the east here. Again, all these areas she wasn't sure about in her them meeting the criteria of being isolated land subject to flooding, but she did describe that they had that potential. So we inherited this plan when we used to site the project, the animal shelter building.
Wait a minute. To better define where we are, this piece right here, this would be Quarry Lane. This road down here is the old access road for the landfill, the old landfill.
Yeah, and this is Jill Kathleen right here. That's the end of that new cul-de-sac. So it's right behind here. So again, we inherited this plan with these wetland delineations, and we use this to site the building. We tried to respect the 25-foot, the 100-foot as much as we could. And if you look now at the design, you can see this is the 100-foot buffer again, and the 25-foot was staying out of completely. Now, once we sited the building, we started going through the process of hydraulic modeling and stormwater calcs. It came to our attention that indeed these areas on site did not meet the volume requirement for isolated land subject to flooding. At that point, we questioned whether we should be filing at all or filing an RDA or what should we be doing on this one. So our volume calcs eliminated this one, eliminated the one in the far east, and the one down the Quarry Hills was designated as a detention pond that was built after 1999 and is maintained as such, so that eliminated that from being a resource area. What that left us with was this one up here, which was shown as a potential vernal pool. Lenore had mentioned that she did not believe the volume existed to be an isolated land subject to flooding, but under your bylaws, you have the right to protect that as a vernal pool if it shows the activities of a vernal pool. Again, our volume calculations got rid of the volume part, and Lenore went out again to address it and saw no evidence of a vernal pool activity. She said she had not had a chance to look at the upstream, the upgradient areas.
When did she go?
2016.
What time of year?
June. But she did not investigate some of the upland areas. She left that open for interpretation. So after our modeling showed that these 3 did not meet the criteria for isolated land subject to flooding, we did talk to your agent, Steve, about going out there. And Steve went out and he had a chance to take a look, and I believe he found that there was no evidence of vernal pool in that area as well. So I don't want to speak for you, but.
Yes, that's correct.
So.
On the north.
Right, on the north side. So that said, that really eliminated all the potential wetland resource areas on the site in our mind. But we did want to go through the process of filing this.
Not in my mind.
Right.
Filing this in, that's our first issue. Our belief is that there was no wetland resources on the site. Second off, if that's not the commission's belief as well, and if this is a town project, we don't want to get into a huge back and forth. this project was cited respecting the boundaries that were shown out there to begin with. So we did respect the 25, respected the 100-foot off of that potential vernal pool, and we also tried to encroach as little as possible on the 100-foot buffer.
Well, I thought you acknowledged in your narrative that it is jurisdictional for us. Not in Lenore White's report, but in your narrative, you did
It was
acknowledge.
initially, in my discussion with Steve, we talked about the jurisdictional part of it. And I think it was brought that that's the reason we were filing a notice of intent. There'd be no other reason to file a notice of intent. There wasn't something out there. Subsequent to the filing, reviewing again through your bylaws, I just don't see any part that makes it any stricter than the state's jurisdiction or definition of isolated land subject to flooding. So I do believe that there are no jurisdictional wetlands out there. But again, if the town is going to argue that and
So just to
dig-
clarify,
Yep.
in Lenore's assessment, or maybe Steve can help with this, ignoring the state's definition of resource area, because in this case, we are talking about the local jurisdiction. Do any of those areas meet the criteria of a wetland? So is there evidence of hydrology? Are there evidence of hydric soils? Are there evidence of hydrophytes?
Yes.
Are they, so in that case, in reading the first section of the bylaw, it doesn't follow actually the state definitions. It says any wetland, any, and so I can,
when I read your bylaw, I see the part where the vernal pools have a different definition.
no person shall remove, fill, dredge, alter, or build upon or within 100 feet of any bank, freshwater wetland, vernal pool, coastal wetland, beach, dune, flat, marsh, meadow, bog, swamp, aquifer, or upon or within 100 feet of lands bordering on. So that
That
first
does not meet
section,
any of those definitions. If
It's
you,
it's an inland wetland.
no, there is no
no
definition.
person shall alter within 100 feet of any bank, freshwater wetland, vernal pool, coastal. It doesn't designate whether it's bordering on a larger portion.
What you do,
Again, it's semantics at this point, so either we can go back and forth on this point, or we can just take it and move on.
All right, the only thing I did want to say, because I have your definition up here as well from your bylaws, you talk about vernal pools, and then you go right down, and you say, your definitions, all other terms are under, chapter 131, section 40. If you look at chapter 131, section 40, under the definitions, this does not meet the definition of a freshwater wetland.
It
You're
does
talking
because
about
we
the
don't
regulations.
require a hydrological connection. You can have small, isolated, that under the state, you need a hydrological connection. Under the town bylaw, we do not. And that's been the consistent policy since at least
Okay, so
January of
I'm-
1993.
We'll treat it like a wetland.
Okay, that's fine.
It's
I
important.
don't want to get, because again, this is a town project, that's fine. So under that, if we're going to go with that assumption, then I would go back to say, again, we have designed it with the assumption that those always were wetlands. We are outside the 100-foot of that northernmost wetland, and let me get back to that page.
Can I stop there? Because
Sure.
this NOI was preceded by an RDA, and we went there for a site visit, and we accepted your delineations as wetlands. So that's part of the formal record, that those areas that are designated in those 3 spots, 4 spots actually, are wetlands.
I saw the RDA result. I didn't see the accepting of the wetland lines.
You didn't give us one. You didn't give us anything in red.
I was there when we voted on
You
it.
might have voted, but you didn't finish.
Well, that's a ministerial mistake, because I was there for the vote, and I think you were too.
I was, but you didn't, there was no product of the vote.
We'll fix that.
But we're fine, we're going to do it as if that is,
We were always told to proceed as if those were wetlands. So
Right.
the project has been designed from day one as if they were wetlands. It's only further on down the line when we got into the modeling, where we came upon what we would say would put these into the non-jurisdictional realm. And if that's not the case we're going to be proceeding with, we're reverting back to what we originally did. which is design the project assuming those are wetlands and respecting the boundaries as written in your bylaws. So that said, if we were to look at the project again, we can see these areas are wetlands. We do have the 25-foot delineated around both of these, and we are not within the 25-foot of that wetland, either wetland. The 100-foot, we're outside of the complete 100-foot buffer of this northernmost wetland, and we do get involved with it for the building and the parking for this small area next to the access road. There's also an off-site small area down here. Part of this project is the town is going to be looping the water line between Jill Kathleen and Quarry Lane. And in order to do that, you'll see the water line comes through an easement right here from Jill Kathleen, and it ends currently today at the end of this property line. We'll be running that water line down to the access road, all the way down the access road, and looping back to Quarry Lane. Right at this final connection point is an existing water line that was put here as part of the golf course clubhouse. We will tie into it. You can see there's a small encroachment here to the 100-foot of this wetland. That area is already disturbed. It was disturbed as part of the golf course clubhouse. It's just kind of sand and gravel and a little bit of scrub brush down there now. So to say there's actual disturbance down here, I think would be kind of taking it to the wrong level. I think the majority of the work we're talking about is this area right here.
We don't need to do that water line for the animal shelter. We're doing that water line for capacity and for public safety of Jill Kathleen and Quarry Lane. We're looping those two lines. Both of those right now are dead-end lines. This will loop it and provide continued use.
All right, and
And an additional fire hydrant, which will come down by right there.
And just so the public knows, there are two issues. One of them is that this is a vernal pool line. The commission did go out there, and when the development with the cul-de-sac was approved, we allowed that line to go through, because that was put in by the developer off of Pleasant Street.
Yep.
And so we approved that because that line actually clips just the very outside of the vernal pool 100-foot non-disturbance zone. So we had 2 votes at that time to allow it to go through, but under the town bylaw, we had a separate vote saying that the town could actually put that in. And this was the intended purpose.
Right.
Eventually to supply
To loop this.
the animal shelter and to
Loop both
and to
buildings,
loop. Right.
both streets.
And we do need to, there is a sewer line going in that easement now to tie into Jill Kathleen. This area right here has not been finally stabilized. There is still erosion controls in the process, and this is all still some exposed earth, with just some weed type things growing. But this is a 1.5-inch plastic line, very shallow, that's just gonna be scratched in to tie in the shelter up to Jill Kathleen.
Well, can I ask you a question? This doesn't look like a circle.
That's the
and it's-
line that came from a drawing that we were given that showed this as the buffer zone. And I do have that drawing.
Well, I don't know where you got it from, but it's a circle because it's 100 feet from the vernal pool, so it should circle this way.
That's fine.
Well, we've already given permission to run that water line through there. Maybe what they did is they, rather than having it go through the circle, they just moved the circle. But that was a
This is the drawing we were given that showed it. I agree with you, it's a strange cutoff.
Yeah, here's the vernal pool, so it goes out here.
Yeah, so this is
You can
what's
see the
shown.
dotted line right here.
And this is what, yes, okay, so they're just showing this line here as it, so we can change that on the plan.
Yeah, if you could change it on the plan, because it is what it is.
Is that line on the, can you,
On the Jill Kathleen
yeah, can you?
subdivision set, we'll put it on that one.
No, can you bring that up again?
Yeah.
What's the note along the rounded edge right there? Can you zoom in slightly on that?
Go bigger.
Yeah, I'm trying. That's the erosion control that we're
Okay.
putting there.
Yeah, I didn't know if that was some kind
And
of
that's still
lot
there.
designation, so, that's fine.
And that erosion control is still there.
It's the erosion control versus the dotted.
Yeah, it's the erosion control, yeah,
All
that's
right, they
fine.
grabbed the wrong line.
So that said, yeah, so that sewer will be planning on going through there. So again, the disturbance area we're talking about really is down at this building in the paved driveway. Most of it does sit on exposed ledge now. There are some trees out here, and they will need to be removed.
That line that goes through the area, through the municipal easement, is an 1.5-inch line.
The sewer line,
And it's tracking the same path as the water line?
Yes.
10 feet off in the same utility easement that's already cleared, yes.
All right. Steve, for your benefit, I know you weren't here at the time, but we
Right.
did actually have a separate vote to run that line, the water line through there.
Okay.
And that will be found in the Jill Kathleen development. I forget what it was called, 41 Pleasant Street or 43? 41? 43?
41 Pleasant, 3341 Pleasant Street.
All right, so it would be in that file. But we did approve that water line going through. So it would be the same basis. I mean, it serves a purpose, and we determined that there was no significant adverse impact on the town bylaw. And
Thank you.
On the vernal pool. Okay.
Yep.
So that said, if you read through the rest of the NOI, we did meet the performance standards, we believe, on working within those areas. We did outline those reasons why. And at this point, we'd be looking to then get approval at least under the bylaw, and have an order of conditions issued so we can move forward with the project design. We're a little behind as it is.
Ingrid, for your purpose, this line here, that should be completed as well. Because I know that's a potential vernal pool. It hasn't been certified as such. But again, just for purposes of, it looks like no harm, no foul, because they'd be outside of that 100-foot mark anyway.
Overlapping each other.
Unless there's something, what are you doing in that area right there?
There is nothing in this area here. Let me go.
I didn't think so. I didn't see it here. I did have some questions. Something on page 3 about a rain garden.
That's that one, right?
Yeah, we have, is it
I made my notes on the basis of this.
You're talking about down after it comes off of the parking.
I believe so. It's this page, Bill, if you can take a look at this one.
Yeah.
What is
page
this
is that?
proposed rain garden outlet structure?
It's going to come out in here. It's down in here. It's because of the drainage in here. The drainage is coming this way. It'll go this way. The ground actually tips in that direction. So rather than just put it out, that's our swale area.
You probably don't know what we're talking about. It might be a good idea to look at this, because is it a change in the plan?
No.
Jeff?
Yeah, I'm gonna put
Right.
it on that.
Yeah.
Right.
Jeff would be very helpful.
Right here in the
Right
middle,
here.
this is gravel parking, right adjacent to the access road.
Our plan is right now to have gravel parking here. I think our plan is actually going to take out this gravel parking and make the parking here. Park in the already cleared off area here, or park below the road that goes around the bottom of the hill. And it's to park along the, parallel park the access road. That way we don't have to take out these particular trees that are right here. Our idea was that we have X amount of asphalt in here. We want the drainage from the asphalt to go this way, and we're going to capture it here and let it go, and it comes out here. And that's on, there's no change to the plan, it just identified on the plan.
Where is the rain garden?
Right in the middle, there's a lower, almost a swale area right between the two parking areas that's gonna be graded down. It's
gonna grade up to here.
Detail.
The under drains,
Okay.
use the under drains.
Is that, Bill, is that where you want to keep the trees, however? Just
No,
north of the
I'm going
proposed?
to take, the under drain is still going to be underneath that asphalt. It's from that under drain back.
Back,
Yeah.
in which direction? Toward the roadway or away? South or north?
Can you go back to the picture again? We're going to take these gravel spots out. we're going to leave these trees that are in here, there. This asphalt that's here will have an underdrain that's coming in here. That's our rain garden area. That gets discharged from here, and it goes down into a swale, which is already existing.
To the southwest.
Yes.
Thank you.
And that
It's already
swale-
existing in this area.
That swale will be retrofit to be a water quality swale, so we're gonna put a check dam on the end and vegetate the inside with the moist site seeds. And control the outlet, so that will be water quality swale. That will be part of the BMP train.
So you said that the parking that would be on the street, is that the
It'll be
intent?
parallel to,
Parallel on
there'll
the
be
street,
X
so it
amount of
doesn't
spots
run.
in front of the building, which are, these spots here will stay here, because this is the front door.
Sure.
There's a garage that goes in, but these spots will stay, these ones here will go parallel to the road. We're not cutting up any more of the area than we have to.
Okay.
Can you jump ahead and go to the storage area, staging area?
Erosion control plan?
No. You've got, let me see if I can find page.
I believe it might be road.
This here,
Road identifies.
I'm on,
erosion control.
I'm on C103.
Yep.
That's the erosion control plan.
Your material, equipment, storage, and refueling area? You're in our jurisdiction.
We'll take it up.
Yeah, we can push that outside.
There's
the-
plenty of room to go to the side.
All right. It looked unnecessary, and I was looking for an alternative spot for it. 'Cause
There's,
No, it
yes.
should be outside of the 100-foot, just move it over.
Exactly, we can push it over. We were again under the impression that was non-jurisdictional, and really wasn't gonna come into play, but it can easily be pushed over. That area is cleared anyway, from the golf course, so we can easily move that over.
All right, good, thank you.
And the size is,
It'll be in right beside the pump house.
So in terms of the identification of the snow storage plan, is that, or the snow storage that's depicted on this plan, is that intended to mirror what's provided in the operations and maintenance plan? And so, just considering the layout of the, putting my plow guy hat on, it's less likely that snow storage will occur there, and is there anything that we can do to ensure that that's done long-term to actually meet the requirements of the plan, or to avoid what might be the easier way to just,
We'll keep any snow storage outside of the 100-foot. We'll find a way to demarcate that 100-foot.
yeah, I think that's probably a good idea.
So when you say that you'll be in compliance with the performance standards of the Milton Wetland Bylaw, are you acknowledging that those are the same performance standards under the Wetland Protection Act?
and the ones that you list as well. It's part of your performance standards is to incorporate the state standards, and it's also the erosion siltation prevention, catch basin oil separators, and resource area flagging. Those requirements are right from your bylaws.
Yeah, yes. I'm just looking at your page 7 on the narrative.
Right.
And you're saying that there are no state jurisdictional wetland resources.
Right.
In terms of compliance with state standards.
Right.
It may not be direct, but it comes through the bylaw, so it's the same performance standard.
Okay.
Do you agree?
I don't agree there's any resource areas on there, but that said, if you look under the,
But we're going to make a
look under the
finding.
state, if you look under the state standards, there's nothing different that we could, yeah, it still meets those. If you want us to outline those, we can. But yes, we still do meet the state standards for that as well.
Right, then it should say that you'll meet those.
That's fine, we can outline those if that's what you want to see on there.
Yes.
Yes. Thank you. I think those were my questions. Do you have any questions, Hans or Ingrid? Steve, do you have any comments?
Not at this time.
All right. Are there abutters, members of the public that would like to ask a question or make a comment? see any. So what do we have? If I can just stall you for a minute, because I did go through the entirety of the application. Are you doing any blasting?
Unknown at this point. I think that's going to depend on the contractors. We have a blasting bylaw in the town, and we often attach that so that there may be a contingent condition to our order of conditions that would say that if blasting is to be deemed necessary, then it shall be in compliance with the town blasting bylaw, which we have adopted.
May I speak?
You certainly may. Come forward, but use a microphone and identify yourself if you would.
How long will the blasting last?
Could you come you forward and use a microphone and just identify yourself, please, ma'am?
Mary McMahon at 30 Quarry Lane. I was wondering how long you expect the blasting to last, to obliterate that quarry, remnants of the quarry?
So they just said that they're not sure if they would require blasting or not. So if they don't know, I'm not sure if they have.
My heating system was damaged through the blasting, or Joe
Oh,
called me.
okay.
And so I'm concerned, and there's other structural damage to residents on the street.
Understood.
It's
So
a
we
very
understand
good,
the concern.
very good point. Can you address that, Bill?
We do not, and it's not our intention to go in and do blasting. We have had geoborings done on the site, and the geoborings are telling us that we do not need to blast at this point. But at the same time, we need to get in there with the machine, whether it's a backhoe or an excavator, to go in and figure out how deep some of these things are. Can we break it just with a rock hammer? We don't know that yet. We are working on a different type of foundation for this, so that it's a shallow.
Insulated.
These two can answer that question a little bit better than I can on the type of
Yeah, it's something called an insulated shallow foundation, where typically you have a 4-foot frost wall going down for a foundation, which in this case would put us down about 5 feet into ledge. But with an insulated shallow foundation, you can use about an 18-inch to 24-inch haunch around the perimeter, and insulating foam board around the perimeter as well that uses the heat from the earth and the heat from the building to ensure that the perimeter of the building doesn't freeze, so you don't need that 4-foot frost wall. So it's something that minimizes the amount of removal of any ledge or excavation or something like that. That was something that we decided on the project to try to reduce the impacts to that ledge.
That's why we're saying we don't want to blast. Blasting is our last, it's a very last method of taking rock out of here.
All right, well, Mrs. McMahon, can I ask you a question?
Yes, sir.
When you asked your question, you said are they going to blast to eliminate the quarry?
Remnants of the old quarry.
Right, but I don't think that's their purpose. It's only for creating a foundation. Is that correct?
That's correct. Right now, there is one high point, and the high point is under that building. Our intent is to knock the high point off, just where move that again, thank you. Right in that point there is where the high point of it is. Our point is to knock that off, and we believe we can chip that off with the rock hammer from the excavator or backhoe.
All right, did you follow that, Mrs. McMahon?
I did, thank you.
Okay.
Yes.
All right.
Satisfied.
Are there other questions or comments? I have one. If you could turn to, I think it's the O&M plan, attachment B, drainage operations, maintenance, O&M plan. On the, under the maintenance program, could you add to this? There's an italicized section in the first paragraph under maintenance program, and it says, records of maintenance will be kept on file at the property manager's office, and copies of inspection and maintenance logs sheets indicating all work and inspections will be available to the town upon request. Can you add that that they will be submitted to the Conservation Commission as well.
This is under the maintenance program.
Yes, that's correct. I'm on page 2 of the
Page
O&M
two,
plan.
that section.
One other point about this building, this is a municipal building, and it will be a municipal building cared for by the Consolidated Facilities Department. So if we're missing something, we're missing something. So we will make sure that it gets,
We didn't want you to miss anything.
I know, I will make sure that Mr. Ritchie has those to Concom too.
Can you give me that exact wording again? Records of the maintenance inspection indicating all work and inspections will be available to the town upon request, and,
Copies shall be provided to the Milton
Copy to
Conservation.
Concom.
okay.
Same page, you get down to biannual inspections, and there are some numbered paragraphs. If you go to number 3, I'm sorry, number 4, which is actually on page 3, it's talking about if standing water is observed for longer than 72 hours, a pump should be placed in the swale and discharged through the outlet pipe. Are you doing any perk tests? I mean, do we know, or do you anticipate that there will be standing water there? Is it going to
We
accumulate?
don't, we actually, that's put in for a blockage situation. What we do have, we don't anticipate great perk rates, no. We're putting in under drain, we're putting in perforated pipe with a stone filter on top. And the idea was to filter it through the stone, through the vegetation on the side of the swales. And we're not gonna get a lot of perk to this, though there are areas that we have found that we will get perks. Most of this will be through draining through the soils and drained out via under drain into an open drainage area just a little bit west of the site. This is, if you find an area that's blocked up, that's not draining, if you look at the swale, water's above the surface, it's not going down. This is a failed situation. It's just kind of a boilerplate of how you deal with a failed flooded swale type of thing, so.
What about the rain garden area? How do you know that that's not bedrock?
Oh, it will be bedrock. They said that's actually been excavated out, and it will be brought back up to grade with stone, perforated pipe put down into that bedrock elevation, grade raised with stone, ordinary borrow, and a moist site plantings along the edges as well. So there will be stone down there. That's what the under drain will actually, perforated pipe and the stone will take that drainage and get it out of the bottom so it's not stuck there.
All right. Now, I have one other question for you. And I hope I can put my hand on the section that I was looking for. Under the turf maintenance plan, same page 3, on the O&M plan, it says the use of fertilizers shall be restricted to those allowed by DEP regs at 330 CMR 31.05. We happen to have received in our packet for this meeting a letter from Mr. Rob Moore, M-O-I-R, from the Ocean River Institute, asking us for the town to adopt a bylaw that essentially requires use of at least 50% slow-release water-insoluble fertilizer. I don't know if you are familiar with that, but the letter asks us to support a new town bylaw that would require that. And it's well-reasoned, and I don't know whether or not it's a good idea or if you would agree to add that, because I actually didn't compare this with 330 CMR 31.05. And it's probably a question coming from left field for you, because you don't have the letter that I read.
And essentially no phosphorus.
Yes,
Right. That's correct.
correct.
No.
And it's talking about the number of municipalities in Massachusetts that have passed such a bylaw and are moving in that direction. And without getting into the merits of whether or not this town should adopt that bylaw, is that something that you could live with, since it appears to be
Yes,
best management?
yes.
Yes, all right. So could we, I'll give you a copy of this letter, Bill,
Yes.
and then maybe, and Steve, you've seen.
He's got
he's
one
got it.
already.
Okay,
Got it.
all right.
Good answer.
So you could add that to the turf maintenance plan as well?
Yes,
So you just want to remove the phosphorus.
Yes.
Shouldn't be an issue.
he'll send it to us.
I will.
All right, those are my questions. Are there, oh, I have one last comment. If you go to page 7, the annual budget estimates, it may be my math, but I think there's a mistake in the budget. I'm on page 7 of attachment D. You've got one drain inlet 4 times a year at $250 each
Yeah,
occasion.
that's a little low, yeah.
So that should be $1,000, and it just changes the total by $250.
Okay.
4 times. Yes, it's drainage structures, is that correct, John?
Yeah, 200
Yes,
bucks.
correct.
Right.
That's not, I don't know what the town budget is for that anyway.
All right.
3 times 4
I want to keep the warrant committee happy, so they know what's coming. All right, any other questions? Any questions from abutters, members of the public? So is there a consensus to move forward with an order of conditions?
So I have not seen the site. I know there is a lot of history. But I don't want to, I understand the concerns about the
That's actually a good
schedule.
point from the open meeting law perspective, because we have been to this site a lot. Because we did one site visit when was it Happy Stables, Happy Trails? It was just, it's not the old name.
Let's put it this way, I'm available tomorrow morning.
Fine.
Well, we have a,
Tell me what time.
but the point is, we have a public meeting on Saturday, this Saturday, and we could vote. And we're out anyway, where are we?
We're at, well, yet to be
At
determined.
least.
I actually have something Saturday morning,
But
I can go
That
tomorrow.
being said, I can take a look tomorrow morning, and then we can still
Sure.
Vote.
vote. Yeah, you don't necessarily need to be present for that. You'll have.
Oh, I just need a
You'll have the
text
feedback,
saying,
if that's okay.
That's fine.
If that's sufficient.
And I think that's appropriate too, because if you haven't seen the site, and we've been there.
Yeah,
Yes.
I apologize for
We're
the
at
short time.
153 Hillside, for sure,
Correct.
tomorrow morning. We may be at other
I mean,
places.
Saturday morning.
Saturday morning, that's
Yes,
correct.
Correct.
This Saturday,
This Saturday,
coming Saturday.
153 Hillside, which you will be at, Jeff.
Right, so if you're there, then we
We can vote.
can vote
Okay,
there,
you can vote.
as long as you see it on.
Yeah, let me know what time you're available. I'm up at 6, so.
Okay.
8.
8,
Noon.
sure. See you at 8.
Okay.
But there seems to be a consensus. Are there any concerns that we should discuss now in public setting? Okay.
No.
So then you see it tomorrow, then we revisit it, and we can vote on Saturday.
Okay.
Okay?
Might as well.
Is that
close?
good?
No, they
You gonna-
continue to Saturday.
They're going to do it Saturday.
All right, thanks.
Continue. till
Continued until Saturday?
With the applicant's consent.
Yes.
Thank you very much. All right,
Okay.
see you Saturday.
Thank you.
All right.
Saturday. Thanks very much.
All right, that was, next on the agenda is notice of intent, 175 Milton Street. Yeah, it's a town property.
Thanks, Bill.
Perfect.
A colored version of the site. Try and slide. Good evening.
Good evening.
Dave Crispin with BSC Group, civil engineer and land surveyor. Nice to meet you back here. Took it down a couple of months.
Yeah,
You still have a quorum, right?
we do indeed.
We have an interesting little project out here on Milton Street. This is the Burr condominium, which this commission actually calls conservation restriction on. which was included in the package for informational purposes. The conservation restriction allows repair utilities and as needed to maintain the property, so I believe we're consistent with that right off the bat. Milton Street's up here. This is a 22-acre piece of property, a large piece of property. Blue Hill Avenue is way off to the side here. So you come in, the main gate is a loop, we're in the corner. This is the original main house. This was an addition in 1980.
When was the garage built?
You know, I honestly don't know. I'm presuming about the same time. We tried to research the... I'm not turned on, my goodness. Want me to start again? We tried to find the original site plans for this project in the archives, and they were unsuccessful, let's put it that way. So we kind of came up a little dry there. But what we do know is when they added the units to the side, they put a full foundation in with a concrete slab. They did something very unusual. They put wooden floor joists and floor decking about 8 inches above the concrete floor slab. So there is a crawl space under there that maybe a mouse could crawl under, but nobody else. And it has a constant moisture problem. Groundwater builds up and some of those rafters are starting to decay. So we're going to do our best to reduce the seasonal high water table in the area of the building. How is that done? This area to the side of the house on the east side is a crushed stone French drain, for lack of a better term. Starts at about 7 feet at this end and is about 5 feet deep at this end. Same thing on this side, crushed stone, and a solid pipe that will drain us all the way back to the low spot. And this is only a 0.5% slope. So this pipe at this point is 0 feet deep, 1 foot deep, 2 foot deep, 3 feet deep, 4 feet deep. It's about 5 feet deep at this point. My expectation is the work that goes on in here is probably going to take about a day. It's going to be very quick. We are in close proximity to the limit of BVW. I know Steve's been out there, looked at our flags, which lawnmowers had mowed over several of them, so we put them back. And what doesn't show up particularly well on this image is the actual tree line is back up in here. So this wetland primarily is in a mowed lawn.
Correct.
So our hay bale, our erosion control, which is a silt sock as proposed, goes in the lawn, well inside the, out of the tree line. It's got about a 20, even if the construction path is 20 feet wide, and I wrote these numbers down, there is about 7,800 square feet of alteration in the buffer zone. 2,400 feet of that is in the 25-foot setback. And the total project itself is about 11,000 square feet, so it's a small percentage of that 22-acre piece of land. Our goal is to build this in September when the groundwater is still low, so that we're not dealing with dewatering. We're actively getting bids from contractors right now to do this. So we're hoping, now that we have a file number, I understand,
Yes.
And we are squaring away a application fee confusion, that the checks are, I hate to say this, the checks are in the mail, but they are. The management people have sent them today. DEP informed me after me calling them 3 or 4 days to get the file number that we didn't send them enough money. We miscategorized the application number. It's a 2G, not a 1A. So more money coming.
So does that create a procedural issue for us?
No, not at all. I don't believe so. You could.
DEP number?
We have a file.
Actually, they actually do have a DEP number.
Oh, okay. I thought the...
Much to my surprise, when I called them and they said, you need to send the funds in, and we're not going to give you a number, and they gave Steve a number, so.
As long as we get a number, then we can vote.
I have a email from Kathy, and there's a file number on it, and it's actually right from DEP. So we have a file number.
Perfect. Thank you.
maybe the right hand doesn't know what the left hand is doing sometimes, but that's what I was
Sometimes it
told. So I
works.
was very happy to see that, because
Yep.
hopefully we can close and we can try and build this before any groundwater comes back up. The interesting thing about this is, it is designed so there is not one tree or bush to be taken down. It's all in the lawn. We've got a couple, we're gonna hook the roof drains up, because right now it just dumps on the ground. Guess where that goes? Right down next to the foundation and into that crawl space. So the goal is to get groundwater and surface water away from this building and dump it down at the foot of the hill where we have our first opportunity. From a hydrologic point of view, no increase in impervious, no change in runoff, no change in volume, no change. It's just being handled a little differently. So that's the story in a nutshell. We've looked at it a number of different ways and feel that this is probably the best way to improve the condition of the water in the basement of that building. And we did look at maybe pumping it, just putting sump pumps, but the fact of the matter, as I said, there's about 6 or 8 inches to work in, not practical.
All right. And I don't know if everybody had a chance to go over the actual grant of conservation restrictions, but there is an exemption in terms of non-disturbance for those activities designed to control flooding. There are all kinds of exemptions here allowing the work under the conservation restriction.
That's why I
So
included it.
it seems, and thank you very much for doing that, because it
You can
does seem
thank
to make
Mr.
sense.
You can thank Mr. Clark, because I didn't see it in the chain of title, and we were looking for the record plans. Mr. Clark was looking in the archives. He said, I think there's a CR on that property. And he was right, so a little digger. So thank you to him for that.
Does anybody feel a need to look at this? I don't. I'm not pushing for it. I think it makes good sense, and it's certainly within the restrictions of the conservation easement. It is exempted from that.
And I have seen it, and I agree with the wetland flag locations as well.
The only one that troubles me, though, I have to tell you, is that wetland flag 14, which is in the garage. So
There was
it's awfully close.
There was a little swale back there.
Yes.
And it might have been built at the time the garage was built, I don't know. But we tracked it all the way up.
Okay.
Right.
All right. Well, it's a pre-existing condition
Yes.
as far as I can see.
Yes, it is.
So are there any members of the commission that have a question or a concern? Are there abutters or members of the public that have a question or want to make a comment? All right, is there a... Oh, come forward, please, and use a microphone if you
No,
would.
that's okay, they don't seem to work very well. Because I'm having trouble here. I live in one of the townhouses,
What's your name? Can you-
Joanne Stanley.
Thank you very much, Joanne.
And it's really not just a basement, these townhouses were built so the lower level is a living space. And we're the ones that discovered it, because we just moved in last year. And we had a home inspection, and voila, there was mold, and it grew into this monster. So it's been there for a long time, and we really need something done.
Yeah, I might have misspoken, and I apologize for that. You're one of the condo owners,
Yeah,
correct?
3 of us are here.
I should have asked if you, I haven't met any of you, I've met the management people. The lower floor is finished living space.
Right.
Then there's the floor joist, and then there's a concrete floor just underneath that. So you know what I'm talking about.
Yeah,
so-
because we haven't been able to have one whole room for a year.
Yeah, it's pulled apart.
So are you comfortable that this plan will work?
Absolutely. Yes.
Good.
Well, are you guys too?
We don't know if it'll work, but we're hoping.
It's a major step in the right direction, I believe.
All right. Any other questions? And if not, is there a consensus that this is an appropriate notice of intent to issue an order of conditions with our usual boilerplate? All right.
Just-
When I
just-
said usual boilerplate,
Yep.
that just means our
I'm familiar.
typical conditions.
I'm familiar with it.
I know you are, but the public may not be, that we have a restriction on where you store equipment, not in the buffer zone, not in the resource area.
Whatever your
So any
pleasure
kind of
is.
equipment that you need, has to be stored, if it's there overnight. I know you said one day.
We have lots of space to store.
If you can keep that and no refueling within our jurisdiction or our,
One procedural question before you vote that I come with hat in hand on.
Yes.
The bylaw fee on this is based on an acreage.
yes.
Is there any way of negotiating that to save these people a couple of dollars on the application fee?
I did see the fee. It seemed to me-
It's $2,200 application fee, and we actually talked with before you were on board, about doing this as a request for determination, and we said, no, don't do that. So here we are with a notice. And I don't know what kind of consideration you can give to that.
I actually
At this point,
highlighted
the
that.
application fees are getting up to $2,700.
What have we done with, now, these were not-for-profits that we did in the Eustis Estate, when they redesigned that driveway. That's like, I don't know, 90 acres. And that would have cost a fortune.
Right.
So we did negotiate that down. That was a not-for-profit, though, so that's a little bit different. This is not a not-for-profit, correct?
All I can do is ask.
Right, no, I understand.
It's an unusual bylaw to be based on the acreage of the site, not the acreage of the work area.
Yeah, I'm a little hesitant to change our precedent. If for a not-for-profit, we've done that, but we've never done it for like an owner or a for-profit entity. Is there any consensus to do that? I'd be reluctant to change our precedent on that, because it actually changes the regulation. And we really don't have the power to change the regulation.
Don't shoot a guy for asking.
Oh, no,
that's
no,
all.
it's a fair question. I actually highlighted it when I saw
I
it.
told him I would ask.
All right, well, I don't see a consensus here to make any adjustment.
Thank you for your
That is the
consideration on
regulation.
that.
All right, thank you. So, you've already made the motion, subject to the usual boilerplates? Second. Any discussion? All in favor? You're good to go.
Thank you very much.
Thank you. Yeah, good luck. I hope it works.
Something before they should see.
Should be helpful. Good. That's good. Good
It
news.
should work. Good luck with it, David.
Thank you, Steve. We'll see you.
All right, next on the agenda, I want to do number 3. We've already continued. Number 4, certificate of compliance 1424. That's the one we continued. Steve, is that right, number 4?
Yes, sir.
Request for certificate of compliance 3 Carisbrook Lane, Road.
And if you'll open the file on that, John, you'll see I colored up. I think it's right there on top, yes. I colored up the notice of intent application plan at the back of the notice of intent application on that one. Okay.
We're Travis and Melissa D'Amato, we're the owners of the property.
Welcome. I'm sorry, can you say that again, Steve?
Yes, right there, the colored, you see, the smaller plan is colored up. You
Yes.
see some colors on that plan?
Yes.
Okay, I think that's what you were looking for on the phone with me yesterday. The location of some bushes you were talking about? That are not on the as-built plan, nor were they on the plan of record dated, it was in the order as dated September 12th, 2017, but the best plan I could find was dated September 23rd, 2017, which is right there at your fingers as well. So there's an inconsistency with the plan inside the order of conditions, on the order of conditions.
But do we have a stamped plan? I think in my email I said the lower left, it's actually usually the lower right. It's stamped approved.
I did not find one in the file. Whether I missed it or not. And I'll take a look again, right now. Forgive us, we're just.
Oh, no, that's all right, that's all right.
We're trying to do some
Is it
process.
all in here, or is it a completely separate file?
No, there's two files. I believe the most recent one is in here. And stamped as approved, usually right here. Is that
Yes,
correct?
that's correct.
Okay. Here's the order. And the order mentions a notice of intent plan dated September 12th, 2017.
This is August 29th and September 23rd. Which one, what's the date you said, September 12th?
September 12th. And it's not in this file, I don't believe. Let's take a look. Multiple plans, it's September 23, exactly.
That's what I got here.
Right, okay.
While he's looking, I'm just confused by the deck. There's a smaller deck and there's a larger deck. Did you?
We didn't touch the deck.
We didn't touch
That's
that.
the deck.
Now, the deck is on the notice of intent plan, well, there's a plan of 23rd September, which, again, is inconsistent with this date. There's no approved plan in this file, and this is the older file for the same location.
Is that, because we did do an option A and an option B, I remember, for our walkthrough, maybe that's what you're referring to? And then we eliminated one?
No, we're talking about
Okay.
the plantings. There was supposed to be 31 plants at your northwest corner.
Those are the ones, were those part
Yeah,
of,
so
those
that
weren't
was
part
part
of your order,
of
right?
something that we had initially discussed, but during the walkthrough, we seeded those. We seeded that plan and we went with option B, which got rid of any changes to that northwest corner.
Right.
And we moved the hot tub away from the deck and over to the,
That's north.
where it is
Outside the buffer
existing, outside of the buffer zone currently.
And that was at our suggestion, if I
Absolutely.
remember
Correct.
correctly.
Yeah.
So there's
Yeah.
nothing here.
We didn't do anything.
We didn't do any of the plantings out in that back corner.
Yeah, no, that was something we had talked about initially, and then we
Yes.
decided to get rid of that.
The bushes that I was talking about were in the original file.
In the original file.
Oh, way back, yeah, I remember we took
Right.
the pictures from the people that before us, those bushes that we're referring to?
Yeah, it even goes back before them.
Oh, before that.
It goes back when the house was first approved. There was
Yeah,
supposed
we
to be
haven't touched
blueberry-
any of those bushes.
No, I know that, but because when we went out there, at one time, there had been a delineation line, and the only reason I'm talking about it is that you've now got manicured lawn right up to the wetland line.
Yeah, we haven't moved that from the walkthrough, or it's always,
Yeah.
when you guys were there, we haven't changed that at all.
All right, one of the things I was looking for was,
Okay.
Yeah, these are the older files. This one is September 1985.
no, I wasn't on it then. I was there in '93.
This is 99. And it's just showing.
Is that the 168? That's, see that yellow highlight? What does that say?
That yellow highlight is 168, that's correct.
Okay. That, yeah, that's what I had been looking for, because that was my memory, and this is 1999.
99. Right. I don't know if that 168 line, I believe it's on this 23 September.
It is, but the problem I had with the as-built plan is that it's got the 100-foot buffer in the wrong place. This is the one,
That's correct, that's the revision.
no, this is not the as-built.
No.
You have the as-built in the new file, that one there.
Are you talking about the current as-built or
Yes.
the,
Current
One
as-built.
reason for the closeout?
yeah. Oh, so you're saying that they used the,
Here it is.
they didn't use the
Buffers.
revised delineation that was
Right.
used for the prior property.
Right, so the delineation line is here.
Yes.
So to clarify,
What was that?
during the notice of intent application that you filed, because of the prior discussion before you purchased the property, and I believe it was a non-compliance issue with associated with that, there was an agreement to adjust the wetland line.
No, actually, it
And-
predates that by a lot.
Well,
When-
yes,
when
that's
the-
what I
When the
mean.
house was first built.
Yeah, that's
when
what
we
I'm referring
permitted,
to.
first we permitted the street, then we permitted each individual house lot. And at that time, the 168 line was set as the delineation.
Yes.
Then move
so-
forward, I don't know, 10 years or so, and after that, we had a problem with the placement of a hot tub.
Yes.
Was in our zone. So it was already
And
at
so
the
the
168 line.
168 line was carried, and I believe that was part of the discussion.
Yeah, and I
Yes,
think
we
we
had-
had thought I remember we had sent a wetland specialist out through a different line, based on current wetland studies, and then we went back to your
Yeah,
line.
as part of the,
Right.
as part of the discussion.
Correct.
Yeah.
You accepted the 168
Absolutely.
line.
Yep, and did everything that you asked us to.
Yeah, so the reason that I'm concerned is that on your as-built plan, they've got the jurisdictional line as measured from your wetlands person as opposed to the
Oh, the one
168
that,
line.
oh,
It's
interesting.
just,
So they
it
screwed up the
won't make
as-built?
it, yes, it won't make a difference to you.
Ah, I see now. I get that. I was like very
We,
confused.
yeah, we don't have copies of the latest as-bills.
All right, this one
They
is
sent them directly to you.
July 25th, 2018.
Yeah.
I'd just like it to go back and reflect
Using the 168 line as
use the 168, so the
Understood.
buffer, it's gonna move it out, but it's not gonna change. It's not, the 25-foot, I think, is correct,
Okay,
but
the ones,
the 100-foot line is incorrect.
okay, so that's,
And it's just because it's, if we issue this, we've got a record here, I just want the record to be accurate.
correct.
All right, and so there was one other question that I had, and that is, there's something in the as-built.
And you said that was dated July 25th?
28th, that was the one we just had.
25th,
25th.
Oh,
25th, July 25th, 2018 is the date.
I'm just trying, and maybe you could kind of ballpark it, because I know we've seen it.
Yeah, yeah.
We've been there. But in this area here, edge of lawn,
Yeah.
see, this is our wetland line
Yep.
here. Edge of lawn, how far do you go? And what I'm
No,
concerned with is
it's literally, you
fertilizer.
can barely fit a small lawnmower along this bed line.
Okay, that's
So
my memory of what we
And
saw.
that's all it is, and we have never, ever messing that line up.
Okay,
It's whatever you saw, that's what's been going.
okay.
Like, that's always been, again, it's about as wide as a, not
About
like,
2
you couldn't
feet.
ride a lawnmower there, but
I agree, I saw it a couple days ago,
Okay, good.
we have never messed with
Yeah,
that.
yesterday, actually.
All right, perfect. So that, I don't have an issue with this. I don't know if anybody has any questions or concerns. I do not. I just want the as-built corrected so that it reflects
Correct.
properly where the jurisdiction line goes. Other abutters or members of the public that have a comment or a question? Seeing none. Is there a motion to issue the order of certificate of compliance contingent upon a corrected as-built plan?
Yes. So moved.
Second.
Discussion, all in favor? Good. Good to go.
Can I ask a quick question while we're here?
Yes.
So remember we were there, we were talking about that invasive species that's of the tall, I don't know what they're called.
Phragmites.
Phragmites.
Common
That-
weed.
That line is continuing to move closer and closer to us.
Yes, they will.
So, I don't, it was funny, we took a picture the other day, it was a beautiful sunset, and I was like, that is much closer to, so what do people do about that? Or do you do nothing? I don't.
Is there any-
I'm just kind of
You
curious.
can dig it out, it's really very labor intensive, that's best. What some do is cut and paint the cut.
Exactly.
So don't spray, don't
Of course, I mean, it's very much in the
broadcast.
wetland, so I don't,
Right.
like, I was more of
But
like,
it's not on your property yet.
what'd you say?
It's not on your property
not.
yet. It is-
Getting-
It's an
It's getting very
invasive.
close, and
Yeah, it's an
Right, and it's-
invasive.
Eventually gonna get to our
It moves
property.
It will
fast and it's
encroach.
bad stuff.
is there people is there somebody we could talk to about that, or should?
There are
talk to about
management
that?
plans associated with it. I don't know you know, that there is a general approach that is consistent with what's been discussed, but I don't know if there's, it would depend on who, you know, this is again off your property.
Yeah, it's off our
and-
property
And so
now.
it would depend on
Slowly
who
get pretty
the
close.
owner is of that property and whether, you know, they have the ability to do that.
Okay.
And,
So you have to find them
as
first
it-
and then,
as it encroaches onto your property, and it's, you know, we generally don't have an issue with controlling of invasive species as long as you're not actually digging.
yeah, no, yeah, I
There's one other method, is covering it with black plastic. And that'll work as well. And solarizing it over a summer.
oh, wow.
We've seen that work as well.
Interesting, but it's not on our property, so it's,
Right.
it covers somebody else's property in black plastic, and probably.
Well, you'd have to talk with them first.
Yeah, of course.
Just
Of
talk with
course.
them.
Okay, cool. Thanks for the advice.
Good luck with it, and give us
Yeah.
a call anytime you have questions.
Well, that's kind of more of, we had talked about when we were out there, and we were like, oh, what is that? Oh, it's a invasive species. Thank you very much.
Here,
Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Oh, appreciate it.
anytime you have a question.
Appreciate it.
Happy
Thank you so much.
to answer.
Yes.
Yeah.
Food system.
They go down to
Steve,
China,
before I
don't they?
mess this up,
Yeah.
this is the old map. Does this go back in to a file back there?
How old?
This is a 1999.
Yes, lost file over
I'll
there.
just set it aside. I just
Fine.
don't want to mess it up.
Yep.
All right, next on the agenda is number 6, request for a certificate of compliance, 348 Truman Highway. What is that?
That was a septic system.
Correct. We did a site visit there as well, John, if I remember correctly.
I did a site visit there last week as well. The grass is growing back. There's quite a bit of crabgrass, but there's also some long grass. It has hit its 75% performance standard. The erosion controls were removed. Looked fine, in my opinion.
And this has a professional engineer certifying that he has inspected the above site and found it to be in substantial compliance with the approved plans, signed by George Collins, Chief Engineer, Collins Civil Engineering Group. And we've all been to the site based upon his representation. Are there any questions or concerns? Are there any abutters or members of the public that have a question or comment? Seeing none, is there a motion to approve the certificate of compliance?
So moved.
Seconded? Discussion? All in favor? Done. Thank you.
Good to see this work done.
It does.
Once again, just flip over one page.
Next on the agenda is informational, 1672, 1702, 1710, 1726 Canton Avenue. This is the Carberry and Walcott Estate Plan.
Good evening, my name is Jack Dawley. I'm the owner of Northland Residential Corporation based in Concord, Massachusetts. We've been before you on a number of instances. We're here in, if you will, as you said, as an informational meeting or a pre-filing meeting in regard to the development plan for the 47 and change acre piece of land located at the southern end of Canton Ave. Following a 16-month conversation with the town, neighbors, abutters, and other stakeholders, a warrant article was presented to town meeting in May of 2017 to create a Great Estates bylaw. This property would qualify under the provisions of the Great Estates bylaw, subject to the issuance of a special permit. As such, we are moving forward in the development of a plan set for application to the planning board and to the Conservation Commission for respective permits associated with the development plan that we all worked on together, 2 years ago, or over a 2-year process. So we thought that we are taking our time this summer to meet with various stakeholders that we were involved with previously, to update them on our plan and our timing going forward. We do not have a formal application before the town or this commission. So with that, I'll let Ned Corcoran, who has worked with me and on my behalf on this project, sort of walk you through this deck of slides, just to refamiliarize the commission on the property and the plans.
Good evening, Mr. Chairman, members of the commission. There are really sort of two components to what's being discussed here. One is relative to, in preparation for the filing of a notice of intent, there is an intermittent stream that runs through the property from the sort of the top of the property down to the left. And two is to outline a plan for, relative to the granting of a conservation restriction over 60% of the property, hopefully to this commission. And we've given you a draft of a CR that's consistent with the CR that I developed with this commission and with the state for the property on Highland Street for the Burke property, where this commission received CR in that case. So a quick overview: the property is what's known as the Walcott Estate Carberry property. It's at the far southwest end of the town at the end of Canton Avenue. It's situated such that Canton Avenue is at the bottom of this slide. As you get to this point, you drop around the corner to Brush Hill Road, and you can take 138 out to Canton. Brush Hill Road, Blueville Avenue comes this way, and Brush Hill Road comes down by Fuller Village here. Property is 47 acres. It's got 1,600 feet of linear feet of frontage on Canton Avenue. It rises approximately 150 feet from its low point at the northwesterly corner, proximate to Carberry Lane, up to the southeasterly corner, approximate to abutting the Blue Hill Reservation. It sort of rises and plateaus as you go. There are magnificent features, including a lawn, a meadow. There are three major driveways into the property. This serves what's known as the Manor House. There's the Center Drive, an existing drive that serves both the Walcott Mansion and the Walker property, which is abuts to the south. Existing conditions: there are a number of older buildings on the property. Three which are to be preserved in accordance with the bylaw that was enacted with the town. It's the Manor House itself, which was built in 1875. It's the Governor Walcott Mansion, which was built in 1890. And not a historic house, the Devon's house, but a house which is character and is visible from Canton Avenue, particularly as you rise up the hill from north to south. It's visible across the meadow, and it was an important consideration for the neighborhood relative to the notion of redevelopment here, that this view shed in particular, you can see the Manor House and the Devon's house from Canton Avenue, very important to the consistency of a value in that part of Milton. You go from this property past the Carberry Lane to the Bartol Estate, excuse me, and then around the corner to the Eustis Estate. So three major sort of estates that line the easterly side of Canton Avenue. The other buildings are sort of old sets of outhouse, smaller houses, carriage houses, barns, and the like, those which will be removed as part of the project. And the intermittent stream that comes sort of from this is all upper DCR property, was acquired by DCR from the Carberry family in approximately 1991. But there's an intermittent stream. We were before the commission about a year and a half ago to delineate the wetlands here that comes down across and crosses through the Carberry Lane subdivision and then moves further out as you go. That's essentially a channelized, very narrow intermittent stream. There are a couple of wetlands including a horse, what was, used to be a pond for the washing of horses. There's a dam structure in here that was subject to Commission's jurisdiction a number of years ago, and the like. The zoning was enacted in May of 2017, and this is the development plan that had been developed in the process of about a 16-month period leading up to the zoning. The zoning allows for 54 condominium units on the site, 2 to be developed in the Manor House, 1 in the Devons, and 1 in the Walcott, and then 50 other units in buildings, in new buildings to be developed on this property. The main center driveway will be relocated to the south and sort of curve up and through the property and will disappear into folds in the land. The property rises and then drops in and then rises again, and that road disappears from view as you come into the property. This will become an emergency access only for fire department and other emergency access. And the roadway here that serves as a driveway up into the Walcott property will actually be severed at this point just above the place where it turns into the Walker property. That will be revegetated in this location. It will be only available for use by the, in accordance with the easement provisions that benefit the Walker property. The zoning also requires that at least 60% of the site be preserved under a conservation restriction or similar document. There is a DCR trail connection at the top of the property. It's called the Carberry Trail. We have an agreement with DCR to have a trailhead at that location with a kiosk and access into DCR's property. Agreed to maintain that trail. There'll be a small parking area composed of pervious surfaces, which will be located here. And then there's a 6-acre field, old field up in here. We've agreed to mow that twice a year in order to preserve habitat for birds and butterfly and other issues, but do it obviously outside of their the gestation period. The other thing is that there will be a walking trail along the frontage behind the stone wall that runs the length of the property. There is no room for a sidewalk, very little sidewalk out in this part of the town. The stone wall is about 4 or 5 feet off of the back of the edge of pavement for the roadway. We're going to install resurrect an old walking pathway through on the inbound side of the stone wall. Finally, all of these units will be restricted to age 55 and older. There's a provision in the bylaw that requires six units to be provided for affordable units. If those units are developed on site, they will be included in the 54 and they will be age restricted. But with an interesting twist, bylaw provides that those units can be produced off-site, and if so, they are additive to the 54 units and are not age restricted. So Jack's in the process of acquiring single and 2 families in other parts of town, closer to schools, to be repurposed, redeveloped, and sold as affordable units to young families with children. So that was the setback. There are some setbacks that are defined in the bylaw. There's a 75-foot sort of no-touch area in here allows limited activity. There's a 250-foot setback in here which allows additional activity associated with stormwater detention and other things.
No structures.
But no structures, no physical structures. There's a 550-foot setback that allows 2 new structures only as sort of a new compound associated with the redevelopment of the Devons house, but no other new structures within this area. No structures within, no roadway allowed within 125 feet of either side lot line, and no structures within 175 feet of either side lot line. And in the rear, no roadway within 50 foot of the rear setback, and no structures within 100 feet. And so those are clear delineations, areas to be paid attention to as we develop the plan.
Before you start, hang there. So, you know, using this plan, because it's the plainest, we started adding buildings on it, and it gets, you know, there's a lot going on to read. The yellow being the proposed roadway of the prospective development application would cross the intermittent stream and/or the resource area governed by this commission and state in two locations. One there's an existing crossing there that if we, you know, if you went back to the existing condition plan, you might be able to see that the driveway is coming down right through there. We are following that same coursing and that same, it would be new culverting in that location, but the location of that new road would be there because that's where.
Is it replacing in kind, or would it be enlarging to accommodate a larger or a more substantial road?
The latter. And then, Ned, if you go back to the yellow plan.
Up in here.
Yeah, we cross at the head of the property. Yeah, I just use this one because you can see the blue more clearly, you know, and we cross there. What the design is box culverts, two large box culverts, and you're going to ask me what are the sizes of them. Our engineer is in the Berkshires tonight with their family, so I
believe she's told me 4x4 box culverts.
Okay, so
on that order, 4x4 feet.
Something like that. But the thought is that they're box culverts in each of those locations. The jury and the commission, and so that, you know, that, and when we get to the next slide, which will show the units, those, if you will, encroachments on the resource area or the resource areas in those two particular areas are part of what will come before you when we file our order of condition, or notice of intent in early. Sorry to interrupt you.
That's all right. And so the development plan has adjusted in a little way, a couple of ways, as we really got further into sort of granular understanding of the lay of the land, how utilities needed to be located, and whatnot. And so the Devon's house is here. Two new buildings will be built immediately behind it, sort of as a sort of carriage house cluster to support the Devons. That 550-foot line is roughly in here. There's a couple of units here, and then it sort of moves around this way. There's an eyebrow here, so units will be sort of developed down on the inside along here. A cluster of units will be built around the Devon's house.
The Walcott house.
The Walcott house. And as we work on the architecture for those things, the architecture will change relative to location on the site. So, you know, the Devon's house is a clapboard, gray clapboard building. These buildings will be built with the similar materials. The Walcott house is a stucco building. Those buildings will have these buildings around here will have a stucco finish. These buildings will be designed to fit from a color and materials into the area that they're located in, and these will be designed to pay attention to the materials of the manor house.
Can you go back to the existing conditions?
Yeah.
There we go. In terms of the structures that are closest to the resource areas, what's being proposed in terms of, so you kind of on a high level went through what's being retained, what's being, so
the only three that are being retained are the manor house, Devon's house, and the Walcott house. All of these others are being removed.
Okay, and so, I mean, obviously, the concern on our part would be how you approach the demolition removal of those within the resource area. I hate to ask, but has any environmental assessment, site assessment been completed, or are there any concerns about hazardous materials or any?
We have a phase one in there.
Any wrecks that were? Excuse me. Any wrecks that were identified?
The only wreck is there is at the manor house. There is an oil tank that is in the ground that has to come out.
Okay, so nothing associated with the structures on the inside. Will it require any kind of work in terms of asbestos or lead abatement or during construction?
None that I'm aware of.
Okay, I mean, they're considered residential, I guess, so it wouldn't really fall under that.
Well,
It's
none
kind of
that I'm
a-
aware of. There could be, and I guess I'd have to dig into that in further detail.
Those are old
They're
structures.
older buildings, so it's, you know,
So-
I mean.
Yeah,
lead
that's
paint's
the
been
reason I
around a
asked
while.
is if you have to do any mitigation of
They're being
during
removed, but
demolition.
we'd have to pay attention, obviously, to, in the demolition process, to proper handling of any of those materials.
And then lastly,
It's a good point.
in terms of the roadway alignment relative to the existing, obviously, there's some modification, but it's, you're saying that you're keeping that crossing alignment generally the same, but I'm guessing you're gonna strip out the old,
What's there will
What-
come out and
There'll be a new culvert.
there'll be a new
Okay.
culvert, new cover.
do you foresee the need of any significant elevation changes, or do you think you'll be able to retain the existing?
Deb has
grade?
tried to maintain the existing elevation at that crossing
Okay,
within, I mean, to the inch, I can't.
Sure.
I don't know.
Sure.
But close. We have to get a water line through there,
Mhm.
and drain some drain lines.
okay.
Trying to bring sewer up around the top, so we don't have to run sewer, down, up, and down, from a pumping standpoint.
So is this gonna connect to,
Going to connect to municipal sewer. We're right around the corner in Blue Hill Avenue and Brush Hill Road. There's a sewer line that runs right down Brush Hill Road. It's owned by the town. We're going to cross roughly through here, tie, come around the corner and tie new sewer. And take all of the effluent will come down through that sewer connection. The original plan had us thinking about septic and creating a septic field. It does qualify under Title V, but it really gets into much more activity associated with where do you put it, what effect it might it have on trees and other areas to be protected. So because we're within 500 feet of that connection, we can bring sewer around. And the fall of the property, other than the need, is such that we can use gravity to get there.
so I just have one more question. In terms of the CR, assuming the commission does accept, the existing property is maintained, obviously, with these meadow areas. You had mentioned an agreement with DCR. Who would actually take ownership of that continued maintenance?
That would be
the responsibility of the commission?
required of the condominium association.
Okay,
And the condominium documents, they would be required to maintain it. There would be a agreed upon schedule of maintenance. The
including the CR land?
Yes.
Okay,
Yeah, in
so
particular.
and I'm guessing the language would try to maintain the existing character?
Yeah.
That's the
Very
intent.
much so.
So the Manor House lawn would be maintained by the condominium association as a lawn. As it is presently, it's mowed, I presume weekly or frequently. The center field is more of an agricultural field and has been mowed sort of an annually or a twice a year kind of basis. They mowed it this year, and the intent for that area is for it not to be lawn, but for it to be
Meadow.
field or meadow.
Could-
Around the
Can
manor
we
house.
stay with that for a minute, Jack? On this note, looking at the good draft that you have on the conservation restriction and referring to section B, item 1, on page 3,
Section 1,
page 3,
page 3.
Covering removal and destruction of trees.
no, periodic, section B.
Yep,
Oh, yeah.
B,
One.
B1.
Would you be open to changing the word periodic to semi-annual mowing of that meadow?
Yes.
Okay, and that would be consistent with what you were talking about with the upper DCR meadows, and remove any ambiguity about what periodic means.
Yeah, I'd
in
be
a
happy
later
to get into
interpretation.
more detail on this with the
Good.
commission at the appropriate time. I mean, this was sort of a,
Understood.
greatest hits kind of,
Yep,
see if we could drop it in and get the conversation
good,
going.
thank you.
But yes,
Has
you know, they come
DCR
up with a schedule.
Has DCR provided any specifics in terms of what their expectation is of, you said, to improve habitat? And I guess my question would be, would it make sense to extend that to at least the upper portion of the property where it abuts to be consistent one side to the other?
Yeah, I would say,
Get as much bang for the buck, I guess, is
here's the
for the
broad
for
strokes
birds
of
and
the
bees.
conversation. Can we get you and/or the condominium association to contribute a sum of money that is used toward the mowing of that 6-acre field, that's what we refer to it, on some
The DCR land.
DCR field, on some, whether it's once a year or 2 times a year, it hasn't been defined yet.
So they were just talking about mowing, they weren't talking about any.
Well, they want two things. They want it mowed to keep it from being overtaken by
Correct.
woody invasive species, namely white pine, so it stays as a field. They also want the Carberry Trail, like a 4-foot mower deck width, maintained monthly so that as you walk it, you aren't infested with ticks.
Yeah.
So that.
It has to be maintained so that emergency gator vehicle can get in.
Okay, so they didn't actually talk about habitat enhancement?
Not
per
yet.
se.
No,
Okay.
no, they've talked about butterflies. I guess it's a good habitat for butterflies and certain species of nesting birds, ground nesting birds. And I owe them an outline back of trailhead, number of parking spaces, map kiosk, fire gate, and something.
A long list of stuff.
So we got into a conversation last week was, okay, am I mowing it, or AKA the association, or are you mowing it and we're paying for it? So that all sounds relatively simple, and I said, well, I'll go mow it tomorrow. And he says, well, it's private, public property, and how do we?
Access.
How do you let, an unauthorized, uninsured, none of this, none of that, so maybe you should give us the money. And then their concern is if the money goes in there, it goes into a general fund, and it could be used for anything.
DCR has a dedicated access permit program that they,
So, yeah, so then they got into some sort of, he mentioned Denny Swenson, who's on the...
Friends of the Blue Hills.
President of the Blue Hill Trails Association, or something like that, and that there may be a pot that the money could go into, and it could be earmarked. So I would say we're all talking in that direction. The final details are not...
sure,
defined.
okay. Yeah, no,
The
that's.
intent is there,
and
but
so
how
I-
you get there is not there.
Sure, and so I guess I misunderstood about the habitat enhancement part, and so it doesn't sound like that's even,
Enhancement or maybe maintenance?
yeah, it sounds like maintenance is
Habitat
more
maintenance,
the
probably
appropriate
maybe a
term.
better word.
Yeah.
They don't want to lose they have a lot of forested land. Forested land is good habitat for these.
Certain kinds of species.
And open lands are good habitat for these, and they don't want to lose the open land.
Yep.
Those were meadows.
Yeah.
Those were high meadows for years, and they are beginning to be encroached upon already,
Yeah.
not insignificantly, so I can understand clearly where DCR is coming from.
Yeah.
They want to restore them, just like we want to maintain the lower meadow.
Right.
So there seems to be habitat value in openness, and how do you affect the perpetual maintenance of that openness? We're in agreement with them, or in alignment to affect it, we just haven't figured out how to write it.
Okay, and that's, I guess, the explanation I was asking
It's a lot
for,
of
so
words,
that's,
sorry about that.
nope, that's,
And the form that this
Appreciate it.
draft is in is a form that EOEA uses. They have to approve a form in conjunction with town council, and you sign it, the selectmen sign it, the Secretary of Environmental Affairs signs it. And so this is a first draft at getting at what we're trying to do. Obviously, comments that you would have would be helpful with respect to the wordsmithing, and if there's anything in here we've missed, or something you say, whoa, that doesn't look right, you can certainly want to hear about it.
Yeah, I mean, I know you have another half a dozen items on your agendas, and this is supposed to be informational, so we don't want to just keep talking. And as Ned characterized it, we're coming forward with a plan to the planning board. We'll also be coming forward to this commission with a notice of intent. I think this will be a singular notice of intent that will cover the two crossings and the placement of structures and/or the removal of structures, existing structures that are within 100 feet of the jurisdiction. Some of these existing structures are within 25 feet of the resource, or, yeah, of the flag resource. Right. All of our structures are outside of 25 feet, but we need to do both work. And then we have this CR, which we'll need to, work with you to get right and align appropriately. And would look forward to that when we get there.
And so the last handful of slides sort of shows the progression, a progression of development. First is that, these 2 units approximate to the Devon's house, we move up to an area above the manor house. We move around to the area of the Walcott house, come around up into the area above. This over here, by the way, is very dense successional pine growth that we don't intend to go in. I'm not sure anybody would want to try to go in, and it just will stay.
Yeah. Right now, you can't move in there.
Can't get in there.
It's pretty unpleasant.
Yeah.
Been there, you're right.
So, and then we sort of move around the site counterclockwise and through. And then, so the buildings to be retained, this is the Devon's house. It's a 1945 structure. It's not historic, but it's got a presence, and it's a presence that's recognized. The manor house is a magnificent, large mansion. There'll be 2 units in that. And this is the Walcott house with the stucco.
In one of your plans, Ned, you indicated that 4 were going to be retained, but
4 units. 3 buildings, 4 units. So there'll be 2 units in the manor house.
Okay.
1 unit in the Devons, 1 unit in the Walcott.
Got it, okay. Thank you.
You're welcome. And then this is a little bit harder to read, but this is a utility slide that shows a couple of things. 2 subsurface drainage areas within the area of the lawn of the meadow. Sort of large underground detention areas where water will be held before it goes. Designed to handle 100-year storm. A small detention area here to handle the bottom portion, drainage from the bottom portion of the roadway. A small detention area here to handle the area whether you kind of rise up and then down into the property coming off the new entry to from Canton Avenue. Sewer that will come around and over here and down and around the corner. And then the town has asked us, we had a preliminary conversation with some members of the Carberry Lane neighborhood about 2 weeks ago, and obviously looking forward to further conversation. When Carberry Lane was developed as a subdivision, the town, they brought water in, and there was an easement that crosses between 2 properties in here, and then was to come into Carberry Lane, the Carberry property. There was a 50-some unit, 1 acre subdivision that was platted and approved before zoning was enacted to change this from 1 acre to 2 acre zoning. Thereafter, DCR acquired the property up above, which blew up the subdivision, and they lost that protection under the subdivision plan. But there is a water line that comes off of a cul-de-sac and stubs somewhere between the cul-de-sac and the property line. We don't know where. The town has asked us to bring that water line into the property and loop it so that the water will come not only in and out of the site from Canton Avenue, but will also loop and connect to the water line that is in Carberry Lane. It will improve water quality and improve water pressure and fire protection for both areas, but that is a line that runs right between along the properties of two property owners, and so obviously we need to have conversations with them about it.
We have to confirm, the town has to confirm it exists, which the records.
Where does it go to? And
are kind of like the record conversation we were having earlier, a little fuzzy.
And then the open space plan, which would go ultimately with the CR, delineates the area that is subject to the open space protection, and that is all of this area on the left-hand side of the property. This is a natural glacial esker that's wooded. No need to touch that. Come up and around the property. There's an old tennis court in here that's going to be removed and infilled. There's an old small outbuilding, old residence in here that'll be removed and infilled. Come around the outside and down and through all of this area, subject to the restriction. In this area that is bordering the intermittent stream, all of that, it comprises approximately 28.5 acres, almost 29 acres of land out of the total of 47 and change will be placed into permanent conservation restriction, subject to the rules and requirements that will be laid out in the restriction as to what can happen under what circumstances and how. And so, just as a quick timeline, we have, for 2.5 years, been in all of these meetings, neighborhood, planning board, selectmen, etc. Ongoing meetings with you, Historical Commission, Shade Tree Advisory Committee, Traffic Advisory Committee. The target is to file the application for special permit by August 31, and at the same time file the notice of intent. That is an aspirational goal we're working hard to achieve. But we would expect that we would start hearings on both processes, if not by your September meeting, certainly by your October meeting, and late September, early October with the planning board with respect to the application for special permit. And so that's that. And if you have any other questions or comments,
My comment is, it's a good idea to do what you just did, and I thank you very much. I think the others probably think so as well. The whole informational approach before the permit comes in, or the application comes in, I think it's a great idea.
Thank you for having us.
Thank you for being here. Anything else? Are there any comments from members of the public or butters? With that, we look forward to seeing your application. Thank you.
Thank you very much.
Thank you.
All right, next on the agenda is informational 593 Blue Hill Avenue. That's the one that we continued. So that has already gone off to September. Actually, it's gone off until Saturday the 18th. And number 9 on the agenda is a tree survey at 37 Robbins Street.
I don't know, we haven't really talked about it, but I believe so. Yeah, it's going to start at 153 Hillside. Okay.
Good evening, members of the commission. Brad Holmes, Environmental Consulting and Restoration, along with the property owner, Eugene Barros, for 37 Robin Street. We've received an order of conditions for the proposed single-family residence within the riverfront area, and we're here tonight to talk about the tree removal policy that the town of Conservation has. I was out on the site and identified 12 trees that are highlighted here within the riverfront. Trees number 3 and 4 actually can be saved. Those are actually going to be outside the limit of work, and actually that erosion control line can just sneak around that tree number 4. I did prepare and submit a tree review memo that listed the size and species of the tree. Some of the trees are in poor condition. The majority of the trees are in fair condition. They range from green ash, box elder, and American elm. So we're here as part of the order of conditions, one of the requirements to get your guidance, what the commission's going to be looking for tree replacement.
Well, we have a general performance standard of 3 to 1. And so how many, what's your count?
I identified 12 trees flagged in the field. Bob Hannigan went out and surveyed, located those 12 trees and mapped them here on the plan. As you can see here, I did put a memo list of the species and sizes. Trees number 3 and 4 can be saved. So we're looking at 10 trees that are proposed for removal. 2 of the trees are well, tree, as you'll see in my memo, tree number 1 and 2 is a 2-liter, double-liter green ash that has a large cavity in it. And tree number 12 is leaning and going to fall down. It's almost horizontal. Those trees, I consider those trees to be very bad, poor condition, will fail. The remaining trees are in fair condition, a lot of vine impact there. So out of the 12 that I identified, I'd say 7 of the trees are in fair condition. And as I said, 3 and 4 can be saved.
That would be 30 according to our normal protocol. Sometimes when we do tree replacement, there's not enough room for it, so we have this virtual tree bank that people contribute to. And I know it becomes, at some point, it becomes a money issue, so people get into, is it a 3-inch caliper, a 3.5-inch, 2.5-inch, you know, how big is the tree, the replacement tree? And we see all kinds of landscaping plans. Some people say, we'll come in with 3-inch trees, some people come in with 1-inch trees. So I don't know what the consensus is. Do you have a landscape plan where you can visualize replanting of trees on site, you know, in the final
We
product?
haven't prepared a landscape plan, but I did list species that would be acceptable for a replacement here. We can certainly try to get as many of trees as we can, you know, within the side yard area in the back. To tell you the truth, I don't really see that there's the opportunity for 30,
Right.
say 2.5 to 3-inch caliber trees here. So we have to do as much as we can and then look towards the seed bank, the tree bank.
Okay. Do you have, did you suggest particular trees?
Yes.
You said you've got
Second
some.
page of the.
Yeah. Because it's an upland setting, all with native upland trees.
And of those, I always defer to either Ingrid or Judith or anybody, actually. Steve?
Do you have any comments on it?
Just on that list, yes. The only issue we've had is over at the Naval Air Station, the sweet gums aren't surviving very well in the
Really?
cold.
Okay.
Yeah, they're not a native tree to Massachusetts. They're more native to New Jersey and south. That's all.
Sure.
Not a big deal.
We can take that.
Yeah,
I
otherwise,
like to use them when I can, just because they get that nice
it's a
starly.
beautiful, it's a
Yeah,
beautiful
really
shape.
nice, yeah.
Yeah, I agree.
But I wouldn't have a problem with taking that off the list.
Sure.
And,
And you could put sycamore on or something,
sure.
for example.
Right, I was trying to give it a variety that he could
Yeah.
pick from, so if they, you know, were to have a requirement for X number of trees at X size, he'd know that, okay, well, as part of this process, get as many trees as feasible on site and then look towards the tree bank that the town has.
Right.
So I'm not familiar with how that would work.
People have actually done it different ways. Some people actually, you know, pay for a credit at a particular nursery and then give the credit, assign the credit to the town. Others, I don't know, Kathy Bowman is the one that, you know, keeps track of them. Some people just make a commitment and say, like we can draw on, like Wollaston Golf Course. We can draw on them, so if we need trees at Turner's Pond or somewhere, we can draw on that. It's kind of a virtual account, but they're established, they've been in the town for a long time, and they're very responsive. So I think people have generally contributed either money and do a translation of trees to dollar amounts, and then make a contribution to the, we've got a revolving fund that goes into the Conservation Commission revolving fund.
Okay.
That's how it's typically done. But I'm pleased that you can save 2 of the 12. And then the other thing is, if something is a public safety hazard that should come down anyway, then we wouldn't count that.
Good, that's what my question was, the 4 or 5 of them that should come
There's a
down.
difference between fair condition and a public
Right.
safety hazard.
Well, I was wondering about a couple of the definitions and whether or not those would have had to come down anyhow, and should they be counted in the ratio?
Well, no, if something's coming down anyway, I use public safety as sort of the criterion to look to. If it should come down anyway, no, we would not count
They
that.
delete it's good, okay, I agree. That's what I want to.
With regard to the dogwood, as you know, they're susceptible to anthracnose. There's an anthracnose resistant.
Appalachian Spring.
You got it. You got it.
Right. Very good.
So if we were to take, would it be possible to take off the list, number 1 and 2 and number 12, which are gonna fail? That would leave, and then, because we're not going to, we could save 3 and 4, then we'd be looking at trees 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, and 11. So that would be 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 7 times 3, 21 trees.
I'm going with the idea, but let me ask you about 1 and 2 here.
Yeah.
Double-leader tree is fair to poor condition. So I understand that one. And 12, I understand, if that's likely to fall. But how do you compare 12 and 1 and 2? I'm just trying to get your verbiage here. 1 is a double-leader tree, appears to be in fair to poor condition. And then you go to 12, and that box elder is severely leaning and in poor condition and will likely fall. And 12 should be out of there. I mean, that sounds like
Because
public
12
safety.
is almost like this.
Right.
It starts up and it's leaning and it is almost horizontal as it.
That's not good.
Fairly close.
Okay.
Right, it's gonna go at some point.
Right.
Number 1 and 2 is fair to poor because it has it's got decay at the base, it's got a cavity at the base. So it's impacted. So that's where it has the potential to be a hazard tree because of the decay. So I said it's fair to poor. It's not dead, so, you know, or very close to dead, so I didn't say it was very poor or poor, but it's fair to poor.
All right, do you have a sense of the description, Steve?
I would, yes, absolutely. I've seen them, and I agree with Brad's descriptions and his assessment.
Okay. So we're saving 2 and taking out 3? Is that what you said?
3 and 4 can be saved.
Right.
I didn't know that at the time of the delineation. I knew where the riverfront was, we marked that out. At
Right.
the time of my tree survey, I didn't know where the work limit is until he located them and put them on the plan. I wouldn't have included them in your list, in this list. So, 3 and 4 will be saved.
Okay, and then we take out 1 and 2 and 12 as being properly eliminated. And that leaves you with 7.
Correct.
Okay. Ingrid, how does that sound to you?
Yeah, I agree.
Okay. Arthur, huh?
I agree.
So it looks like we've got, the 7, which would be 21 in the bank, well, however many you can plant as part of your landscape plan would be great. And the excess, if you can't take 7, then you can put that into the virtual bank. Does that sound
Yes,
fair?
and so I've coordinated with Kathy on the bank.
And Steve.
And Steve.
Sure.
Okay. Sure.
Is there labor included on the cost for the bank, or how does it work? It's nothing.
Well, what we've done is, and I think we've used generally a $400, it's like $250 and $150, $250 for the tree and $150 for the
labor.
For the labor. So I think we've been using $400 as a cost factor. Is that, anybody have a memory of that?
I don't.
Or is it
not in terms of-
350 and 150?
I don't remember specifics. I think Kathy had.
Just
We've
check
certainly
with
done the
Kathy.
calculations
Yeah.
before.
She'll know.
Okay.
Yeah.
Do you have a memory, Arthur?
It hadn't reached 500, it's in the 400 range.
Yeah, I thought it was 250 and 150.
Yeah.
So for a total of 4.
Yeah,
I think that's what we've used
I
as
think
a
that's
factor.
correct.
Okay. All right?
That sounds great.
Okay.
Thank you so much.
All right, good. All right, thank you very much.
Thanks, good night. Thanks for coming in.
Thank you.
Yep, certainly.
Okay, next on the agenda is enforcement order 1421 Canton Avenue. Steve, do you have an update for that one?
Yes, Kathy told me the letter was sent out probably 2 weeks ago. No green card returned yet.
No green card returned.
It was sent out certified return receipt.
Right, right.
No green card returned yet. And no communication from the owner.
All right. This is a case that we've had the video of them dumping into the stream.
Pretty
since
much.
what, early March?
Yeah.
They're invited to March, April, May. I think every month they've been invited and
Yes, they have.
they've never showed.
That's right.
And then at the last meeting, we discussed imposing a fine of, well, it's $300 per day. It's up to $300 per day
Right.
per violation. So I don't know how many violations there are, but there's certainly one that we can see in the video. And I think that our frustration level with their non-responsiveness has, it's sort of peaked at our last meeting. We suggested that, well, let's give them one more chance to come in and address the issue. And that's why the certified letter. I'm concerned, though, that we don't have a green card back, and that gives me some cause.
Anybody can refuse receipt of a green card letter.
Yeah, but does it come back refused?
Usually, yes.
Right.
Usually it comes back refused. We haven't seen anything come back yet at all.
All right.
Sorry to say.
Well, we know there's been communication, so we know they know, because I think
went
the
there
mother-in-law. You went there.
myself and invited them last month. And invited the woman last month. I went there myself and talked with her.
All right.
And what was the response?
It was not a good response. And I'll leave it at that.
Well, I was just concerned with actual notice.
Right.
And the green card gave me some concern, but if we've had personal conversations, well, we were there, actually, so.
Yes,
And the mother-in-law was
walked the
present.
property, the mother-in-law allowed us to enter the property and
Yep.
search the area, so.
All right. So at this point, as we discussed in our last meeting, I think it is appropriate to start imposing a fine for not correcting the situation, and certainly for not coming in and responding to give an explanation or give us a plan for correcting it. And the public should know that we've got photographs and videos of debris put into the stream, which is not a good idea. So is there, first of all, are there any questions or comments that anybody wants to make?
Should we consult the town council?
We typically do not for a fine. We definitely do for, when we go to the collection stage. Now, generally speaking, if we issue the fine, it's recorded in the registry of deeds, and it becomes a cloud on the title. And sometimes I can give you 88 Milton Street as an example. In 1997, we imposed a fine. We actually issued an enforcement order. At further discussions, we issued a second enforcement order in 1998. We imposed the fine, recorded it, and nothing happened until they sold the property. And then, as you may know, we received $75,000 as a fine, which is sitting in our revolving fund. So that it does, sometimes we don't collect right away, but the reference to town council is, we definitely need town council. We don't have any enforcement authority, that is collection authorities. We have to go through town council for that. But we don't need to go through town council to impose the fine. As part of our bylaw and regulation. So is there other members of the public, abutters, or anybody that wishes to make a comment or ask a question? Hearing none, is there a,
Well, my question is, what is the
Oh.
debris in the brook?
oh, sure, can you use a microphone and identify yourself, please? I should have the pictures here, I can't show you the video, although I've got it. But we can show you some pictures.
My name's Mary Noble. I live at Fuller Village, but I have family property at 1514 Canton Avenue.
1514, all right. Just give me a minute, see if I can get the right file.
So there was excess debris from, I believe, some either landscape or construction work that was being dumped, that there were pictures of, provided by possibly in a butter, directly onto the bank of the stream, and then based on...
So that's the continuation of Bolster Brook?
Yes.
Yes.
Because Bolster Brook goes through my property under Canton Avenue.
And then, in addition, I think it would appear that they added some material to try to alter the stream flow to get the stream to do something other than what it was doing at the time, which, from a resource perspective, might be convenient for...
We just want to record this. Get into the picture.
So that's behind that steel line. That's the old tractor.
Yes.
The old-
Correct.
Okay.
Right. And the bull ring is still in it. We were inside.
So they're just trying to block it.
Are you okay?
Yes,
Okay,
it's
good.
moving. So when you alter a stream like that, while it might look pretty in front of you, there are upstream and downstream potential implications that might affect the hydrologic regime of the stream. So that's the concern.
All right, thank you very much. So is there a consensus that we should start to impose a fine? We'd have to do that by motion.
So moved. I believe it's
All right.
more than a month overdue, in my opinion.
Yep. Second.
All right, and it's $300 per day per violation. It's up to that, so we have some discretion on where we set it. But I think, given the potential number, that we could probably select a single violation at $300 a day.
Alteration of a resource area
Yes.
without a permit.
Correct. Is that the motion? Who made the motion?
I did.
You did, okay.
I'm wondering if we, no, so moved.
All right, is there a second?
Second.
All right, any discussion? All in favor? Good. All right,
And
so
what was the fee
it's $300 per day.
per day?
Per day.
Okay, thank you.
And I put this back. All right, Steve, would you make sure that that goes out in a letter? Now, that has to be part of the enforcement order. So we should probably issue another enforcement order.
I'm frustrated.
And it should say specifically for the violations noted in the first enforcement order that was issued in March of this year, that beginning tomorrow, so it'll be August 15th, the fine will be $15 per day. And that shall be that enforcement order with the fine, $300 per day.
$300 per day,
Right, sorry.
it's okay.
And that will be recorded at the Registry of Deeds. All right.
Good.
Next is Amendment Order of Conditions 94 Parkwood Drive. Anybody from Parkwood Drive?
Mr. Mackey? Not here?
Did you speak with him, Steve?
I spoke with him and said he would be here tonight to talk about, the trees he wanted to cut down. I also had a
Dan, I thought
chance.
he wanted to keep them.
No.
Are we going back and forth?
Yes.
Oh, okay. So I'm not crazy.
No. The next one will be a yes. And I looked at the site today, and he still's not there. The grass doesn't meet the performance standards. The vegetation on top of the leaching field does not meet the 75% performance standard yet. And he was saying, well, that's because the trees providing shade. I really can't comment on that, except, you know, it looks very bare.
Bare in terms of exposed soils?
Yes, there's some exposed soils, yeah.
So originally,
it was a certificate of compliance request.
right,
And then he realized, well, it's not happening, we're not getting growth of vegetation where we're supposed to grow. Then he wanted to cut down up to 6 pine trees.
right.
Then he realized, oh, there's a 3-to-1 ratio, and didn't like the numbers.
So then he agreed to keep the trees.
Then he agreed to keep the trees. Then more recently, he wants to come and talk with us about taking some trees down, but he has to show up in order to say anything to us.
At this juncture, I'm not sure what he wants.
Right, and neither am I. That's why I wanted him to come in and talk with us. Would you care to extend it another month? Is
Yes,
my only
but
question.
will you reach out and talk to him and
I
say,
would be
you gotta
happy to.
decide, what do you want?
Yep, you've got to decide, yeah. You've got to, fish or cut bait, right?
Yes. All
Happy
right,
to.
next on the agenda is
I
request.
just have a question for
Yes.
Steve, if I may, John. When he restored the lawn, how was that done? Do you know, was it done professionally? Was it?
I don't believe so. It doesn't look like it was done
That's
professionally.
what I was wondering.
Right, good question.
And, you know,
Yep.
the type of seed chosen.
Yeah, we have no details, and it was just before I came on, so it was last fall that he did the work,
Okay.
but nothing's growing very well. It's not what I'd say, a success.
Gotcha. Thank you.
Sure.
Thanks, John.
All right, next on the agenda is request for certificate of compliance, 333 Hillside, as that was continued.
Continued,
correct?
that's correct.
Next is amendment, order of conditions, 1078 Blue Hill Avenue.
That's me.
Okay, good.
Good evening. Good evening. My name is Gerard Niskauskas, owner at 1078. My wife and I, Diane Sawyer.
Good.
There's a revised plan for my septic system. The Board of Health, Paul Brania, made some technical requests on the original plan. Bob Hannigan made those changes to the plan, submitted it. Brania approved it. At that point, I notified the
Board of Health.
the Conservation Commission that there was a change. And so here I am. Brania approved it, and I'm hoping this body approves it.
All right, and can you tell us what the changes were? I know, I
Yes.
think they're listed.
Yeah, they're listed in the top left corner of the plan, and so Paul asked for another perk because
Thank you.
the original perk test, he did two, but he did one, but Paul was asking for another perk in the field, in the soil absorption system. Bob Hannigan, summertime, he went on vacation. He'd be here tonight, so I'm speaking as the owner. Paul also asked for a 5-foot overdig, and that's shown on the plan as the dashed line around the soil absorption system. He also requested 2 observation ports be put into the new septic system. And he asked for
Yeah, I don't have the right one.
2 vents as shown on the updated plan, one at the extreme end and one at the top. And then the 5th was to sleeve the sewer pipe as it passes by the existing water line.
All right, good. So, Health Department required this, you did it?
We updated the plan.
Yes.
Paul reviewed the updated plan and said he's fine with it. I'm hoping that you folks are fine with it. So there, any questions I could answer?
This is, okay.
So the request is for an amended order of conditions to add those other features that you see on the plan in the upper left-hand corner.
Thank you.
Well, it seems to conform with that which we're trying to do, upgrade the plan, and it seems to do what we want it to do.
Yeah.
So it sounds like a good idea.
Yes, absolutely.
So this is actually a revised order of conditions?
That's correct, amended order of conditions.
So basically, if I'm not mistaken, we just amend the existing order of conditions to reflect the updated plan date and to capture the...
Yes,
Yeah.
and it's not, I think we have to vote that it's not a significant change. If it's a significant change, you have to go back and file a new one, but if it's not a significant change, we can amend and revise the existing order of conditions, so that appears to be the appropriate course.
I agree.
Is there a motion to do so?
So moved.
Okay. I didn't ask, are the members of the public or abutters that have a question or comment? Seeing none, you've already moved, is there a second?
Second.
Any discussion? All in favor? All right, it's so revised.
Could I also make a plea?
Sure.
Could I ask the commission for a procedural favor? We're in the process of selling this home, our home.
Yes.
And we have signed a P&S contingent on closing by September 26.
Yes.
Our septic installer is scheduled to start August 24th or 27th. I need to notify the town engineer 5 days ahead of time, and so there's time to do that. And the work, fingers crossed, hopefully will be completed by August 31st or September 4th, going across the Labor Day weekend. And we recognize that you will require our engineer to provide an as-built plan and certify, and a certification for you to issue a certificate of compliance. Yes. However, your next hearing is after our closing date.
Yes.
So my request is...
Wait a minute, say that again. I thought the closing date was September...
26.
26, but our hearing is...
You wouldn't be able to get it submitted.
September, well, I'm hoping I could come on September 11th.
Yes, oh, sure.
And with, but I don't know if that's possible, that's why I'm asking a favor. My favor is this. Could the commission vote this evening for Kathy Bowen to release a certificate of compliance should your agent, Mr. Steve Ivas, review the as-built and opine that the work does, in fact, comply with the order of conditions after it's built?
I don't think we can, I don't believe we can do that because it has to be done at an open meeting.
Yes. Okay.
But I don't think it should be a problem for you, because if we issue the order, we'll sign it tonight.
Yeah, it's also...
We'll sign that tonight. Now, there's a 21-day appeal period, so you're kind of at risk. But the Board of Health supports you, we support it. It's a good idea, so I can't imagine that anybody would. So it's a minimal risk. And in our view, it's no risk at all. So you go forward with it. If it's done, and you get the letter back to us, we're meeting in open session on the 11th, and you're...
Well, I'm hoping...
So keep in mind, there's also a site visit that usually follows that hearing. So there may be two opportunities for us to conduct that review. So that buys you a little bit more before the closing.
Yes. Okay.
Yeah, I don't think that you'll have a problem. It's a good project. It's a good idea. We support it. And the way the sequence works, we'll sign it tonight. You get started this week, next week. It's done, and then the engineer certifies. It gets back to us by the 11th. there would be no reason why we would not approve it on the 11th. And that gives you another 2 weeks.
And then worst
Before you
case
close.
scenario, we'll have probably a site walk following. And so worst case scenario, there'll be another public meeting between.
Correct.
When our next commission hearing is, and which will also likely be before your closing. So there'll be 2 opportunities for us to have a public hearing.
It's September 27th, correct?
The closing is scheduled for the September 26th.
26th.
Yes.
That should not be a problem for you at all.
Okay.
I think we can get all that done in timely, just, keeping on schedule.
Okay.
I think you'll be fine.
We understand your concern.
Right, no, I understand that.
Yeah, okay. If, just furthermore, if I knew how complicated this was gonna be, I would've started this like 2 years ago. But,
No, we'll work with you. I think we'll get it done.
Well, thank you very much.
Okay. All right.
Okay, thank you.
You're good to go. We voted and it's issued and you're good to go.
And most of them have signed it already.
Yep.
Okay.
Thanks very much.
Thank you very much.
Come by the office and you can pick up a copy. Call Kathy in the
Call
morning.
Kathy?
Okay?
Okay.
Yes.
Thank you very much.
Certainly. Take care now.
Thanks.
Okay, thank you. Okay, and that is, now let me find my agenda.
We have some additional business to go through.
You're on.
Okay, first one, we have been notified by Mass DOT, you may have gotten the email regarding some work at the Granite Street crossing of the Neponset River by DOT. They'd like to put a barge in, and have, it's basically what's called a jack-up rig, I believe. It's on pads to repair the bridge. They're notifying us of their water quality certification issues. I went through the entire document, it looks fine to me, I think they've done a fine job.
It's any kind of replacement, or is it repair and replacement?
Both different kinds of things for different members of the bridge, different portions of the bridge.
And so the only outstanding question I had is whether it's going to follow DOT standards, and again, going back to the lead and asbestos, will the bridge require any lead remediation?
I didn't
painted
see,
surfaces?
I didn't see anything regarding
It wasn't
painted surfaces.
mentioned.
It wasn't even mentioned
And so,
anywhere in the document that I remember. Yeah.
Right, but you're right, and we've had 2 issues that are directly on point. One of them is that the old bridge on the Central Ave side of the Adams Street Bridge, where you cross Adams Street, when you're on Adams Street, you cross the Neponset to go into Dorchester.
Right.
Just to the left of that, if you're heading towards Dorchester, there's an old bridge there, a steel structure.
It was a
and
railroad bridge, wasn't it?
It was a railroad
And
bridge,
now it's a
right. It's just a
pedestrian
spur.
bridge.
It wasn't the main line, but it was a spur going into the factory.
Yeah.
And when that was de-leaded, we had like a negative pressure balloon around the bridge. And they were very, very careful on that. So we should double check on that.
whether that's required or it's been analyzed.
Correct. And the other thing is that when what's the number, 2 Granite Ave? When that was being constructed, or right after it was constructed, DCR came in and they removed some of the pilings that are between 2 Granite Avenue and the river. And when they came in, the problem was when they pulled them out with hydraulic lifts of some kind, they released all kinds of, mud and damage and,
PCBs, right.
yeah.
Correct.
And that's the site of an old lumber company.
Sure.
And as a consequence, they had all kinds of creosote on site, and it was a problem area. And that's why we were so pleased to have that cleaned up and the new building constructed. That was an issue for us, and that was when they pulled out those pilings. So is there anything in there about removing existing pilings on the
No,
bridge?
not at all.
Okay.
Not at all.
It's just part of the
It's on
structure.
the bridge structure itself.
That's what I read it as.
Specifically.
Structural repairs.
So
Yeah,
they
let me,
didn't talk about the piles or
No.
the abutments or anything like that?
no, none whatsoever. In fact, Let me just give you a very brief. We involve the replacement of the existing bridge superstructure, including replacing deteriorated floor beams and beam ends, as well as performing miscellaneous repairs to the bridge lift system coming up. I'd be happy to contact Susan MacArthur. I've known her for 30-plus years.
Yeah, if you would, that would be
And
great.
ask her about asbestos.
Well, lead.
Lead.
Lead paint
there's
is
no-
really, there's probably no asbestos.
Right.
I'll be happy to talk with her about lead
If there's
paint.
any,
That's good.
if it's been,
Because when they did the piling removal, DCR had subcontracted it out to White Construction, I think. I know there are several of them, but this is the Marine Division. And when they came in, they had all kinds of spill control plans, and they had floating booms because, they were concerned with what would be released when they pulled those pilings up.
Sure.
So that, I don't think that there's any need here, and if they're not doing the sandblasting, then I can't imagine any lead being released. But what about cutting of steel girders?
Yeah, they'll be replacing some steel,
yeah, so the deck replacement
deck replacements.
would actually,
Right.
so that may in fact involve, or if it's, and that's why I was asking if it's repair
Yeah.
or replacement or a combination.
Yeah, it's a
They're doing the
combination.
Bourne Bridge and the Sagamore Bridge.
Yeah.
What about the equipment itself? I mean, that's all hydraulic there. What you call it, a jack up?
It's a pump-up jack.
Yeah, the barge.
It's a barge
It's a
that
floating
has
structure.
feet on it.
Foots.
Yeah, foots. Sorry, it's late. It's been a long day. And what they do is they jack up the barge and stabilize it. And their impact on the ground, the direct impact, is only less than 2 feet square per pad. And I'm not sure how many pads there are to the
Really?
barge.
And that doesn't go down deep into the
Muck.
muck?
Well,
It's
it'll
pretty
go
mucky.
into the muck and then sit on whatever the substrate is underneath the muck, basically. And then it has to, and then
It's
it's
going to be
jacked
equally
up.
dispersed over the, it's like a
Exactly.
crane.
So do they have, and I assume the barge itself has a spill control plan?
Oh, I would assume all of that.
Can you
Yeah,
just
if it's a DOT
confirm that?
project, they'll be following the standard
Yeah.
specification requirements.
Right.
So,
Okay.
John, was that lumberyard Carey and Abbott?
Yes,
Yes, Carrie and Abbott, that's right.
back to the old days.
Right, right. That's number one. Number two, notice from Algonquin Gas Transmission LLC. Did you get that, a copy of that?
Yes.
They'll be doing some evaluation on one of their stations, their pumping stations, out there in the Blue Hills. That's number two. From Enbridge, a new name, like Eversource. And then number three was what you already indicated, John, the Ocean River Institute, and a request to come in and talk with us.
Yeah, I think that's a good idea.
I would agree.
I would ask them, in doing so, and I agree with their coming forward, to bring some document examples like what Falmouth has put into place, so we can actually see.
Yes. Right, and I
Maybe if they
initially,
have two communities, Steve.
Did you say Falmouth?
Falmouth was one.
Falmouth was one of the primary communities,
If
yeah.
they could bring another one.
Yep. Sure. Would you like us to invite them for the next meeting?
Be great, good idea.
In September, yep. I think that's, oh, and one more thing, I wanted to inform you all that 531 Elliott has begun removing some material.
Amen.
Really?
Yes.
By hand or by machine?
Yes to both questions.
Yeah, there's
By
a
hand
big-
first.
There's a big machine.
I didn't see the machine.
Yeah, I saw it was parked right next to, right by the bridge this weekend, and then it moved.
The bridge? Which bridge are you talking about? This is 531 Elliott? Oh, you're talking 0 Elliott. I'm sorry, that was.
Oh,
next-
131.
531.
Zero, right,
Okay.
it's 131 Elliott. Right.
Yeah,
This is a house.
Yeah, this is a house.
Okay, sorry. I was
Okay, so
confused.
that's in progress, which is very good, and I even reported to the building inspector today that it was in progress, and I was very happy about the progress.
Good, and is Tom Palmer in attendance?
Yes, and he will be in attendance again when they do the work. Because Mr. McPherson, I'm sorry,
That's correct.
is it McPherson?
Yes, it is.
He was there today when I stopped by, and he said, well, you know, the original soil goes up in elevation. I said, if that's true, fine, just get to the original soil. That's okay. Have Tom give you the direction of where it goes up.
Right.
You know, that's fine with us. We don't have any problem with that. We're not trying to punish you by taking more away or anything like that.
Yeah.
So that was good. That
I should think you'd want to get that clay out of there.
I don't think he understands how the clay will affect his living on that site.
Yeah.
I don't think he understands that yet. It fully understands.
What it is.
Right. Oh, yes, absolutely. Last but not least, 0 Elliott. I spoke with Mr. Steve Connolly today on site. It started yesterday. He says, no problem so far. I said, I'm only here to ask you to keep it all out of the river.
So again, part of that discussion, I think, was included in the discussion of the demo that the underground tank or potential underground tank that they mentioned was part of that in-between unknown. And we asked that he inform us if there's additional response actions that are required.
I did not know that.
So that's why I
That goes-
brought it up, because as they move through the demo, if they encounter issues with the tank, that might change their
Oh, yeah.
needs.
Well,
So
to remove the tank, they still have to have the fire department present and they notify DEP, and they know it's there. That was a big issue of controversy.
yes,
The tank.
and so
The
that also might alter the.
once in future tank, it's unknown whether there is a tank?
Oh, no. The monitoring wells, the tank leaked. There's no question about that.
Oh, there is a tank
Yes,
there?
there is. And one of the issues was that.
It's gonna have to come out.
But when
Yeah.
the demo was separate, that is the town demolition and then the applicant's demolition,
Okay,
it looked like that the equipment would have to sit on top of the tank in order to demolish the town section. So that's why they started where they did, and they're moving down towards Central Avenue. So they're
Yes.
moving sort of parallel with Elliott Street.
right,
And the purpose of that was so that they don't sit on top of the tank, they can take it out without crushing it.
sure.
But it's very important because there's definitely stuff there.
Yeah, so as they take it out, the scope of the abatement or any remediation that needs to occur may change. So I want to make sure that
Correct.
the commission's notified if there's any changes to that.
I have his phone number, I'll call him in the morning.
Okay.
Okay, sure.
And what happened to the transformers that were underneath the town portion? They're still there too, right?
Is that where people are parking now?
Yes,
It was
correct.
pretty clear.
Yes.
I didn't see any transformers there. I walked into that area to
Yeah.
talk to the demolition
We can
contractor.
talk about their removal
Right. I
at an earlier
try to
point in
remember
time, but I
that.
don't
So
remember
I'd
exactly
inquire
what the
about that,
schedule was.
and if they, what they did with them.
Right. That's important to know where they went.
Yes.
We don't want them on Brook Road.
Well, yes,
Okay.
were they treated appropriately as transformers need to be.
All right, do we have anything left? Any other additional business?
Not for me, I don't believe.
Anything else?
No, I just had a minor thing. Remember when we had the power failure in the town this
Yes.
past spring? One of the things that I did was to drive into the Brook Road facility just to
Yeah.
double check and make sure that none of it was related to trees that had fallen down in the area and so on down the line. And none of it was, but in doing so, talking with the guys, we have no identification of our own to show that we're on the Milton Conservation Commission, so that if we do something like that, they can understand. And Steve, do any of the towns?
I think card-carrying members is
Yeah,
what you're
right.
saying.
I propose badges.
Some badges.
No, I don't know. I had a card over at the, I still have the cards from the Naval Air Station, don't use them very often. I use my own card as a consultant usually when I hand out cards.
I use my Mac card. So I just raised that.
Sure.
I didn't know if other communities did.
I don't know, to tell you the truth.
Just curious.
I can ask, certainly, try to find out.
If you talk to somebody on the side,
Sure.
don't make a.
Yeah.
Good point.
I
Anything
know,
else?
I have some ID as a water department person.
Keep it.
You know, I have that ID, you know, I have a
right.
card. In fact, I probably have, in fact, here, and it's a photo ID, actually. Yeah, that's it right here. Looks like it's a town of Norwell, water department.
There you go.
Kind of thing. Height, weight, eye, hair, date of birth, date of expiration. Which is
Not
only-
your expiration.
No, date of expiration of the card, which was only 13 years ago. But it's a nice-looking card.
It is. Very official looking.
There is one last thing that I with regard to the informal presentation of the, was it Walcott Estate?
Yes.
In terms of the way these plans are being implemented and the provision for lower income or controlled income, the percentages is, and.
Are you talking about the affordable housing component of the plan?
Yes.
Okay.
Yeah, and so while it's a little bit outside of our jurisdiction in this case, but do you know if there's, how well the town is tracking the off-site
Very thorough.
aspects and to ensure that that's being,
Yeah, I believe the planning board is, but I
Okay.
don't know that, but I
Yeah.
know that when we were on Brook Road, right next to Pine Tree Brook, the house that was gonna be raised, that's one of them.
and that's.
That's one that Jack Dolly purchased.
Yeah.
And was gonna rehab it.
Yeah, and I
as,
don't think
affordable.
it was an order of conditions issued?
Yes.
There was, right, okay, yeah, there was, okay.
But to be honest with you, I haven't even noticed. I've gone by there, but I haven't even looked to see whether or
Yeah,
not
there's
they've
no work
started
been
work.
done. And so, yeah, I mean, it's part of this great grand plan, and, you know,
And who's watching to see if the plan is actually done? I don't know.
yeah, so I just, you know,
Yeah, good
I
point.
asked the same question on this instance, but
Sure.
I figured I'd bring it
Good
up.
point.
For Saturday,
Oh, yes.
just 153 Hillside, as far as I know, as far as I remember. Is that correct?
That's good, I have to leave by 9. So you think that'll be no problem?
Yeah,
Maybe,
It depends on how long Jeff talks.
yeah.
You asked me the question. Yes,
Okay.
I think it should be no problem. I need to be in New Hampshire in the afternoon as well.
But we were talking about having a meeting Saturday to address whichever one.
potentially it would be the order of conditions for the animal shelter.
Yes,
Yes,
okay.
so we could talk about that as well, those two items.
If I see anything tomorrow, I'll communicate it to everyone. But it
Please do.
sounds like everybody's well-versed on the site.
Correct.
Yes.
All right, so, we got a motion to adjourn?
So moved.
Second.
All in favor? We're adjourned. Great.